Hi, I'm Matthias.
And I'm May.
And this is our annual Q&A.
Ah, we made it rhyme.
That's not rhyming.
May, Q&A.
I thought you just meant the simultaneous.
Oh.
She did not warn me about this. Anyway, this is the one for 2025, although it mostly covers 2024.
And we are starting at 6:48 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So buckle up, buckaroos. It's going to be a long night.
All right, so
For anyone unfamiliar, real quick, these questions, they come from our patrons specifically.
Yes.
So if you did donations, $1 a month patrons could submit questions, one question at a time, and we answer them all in one big burst.
every year,
Yes.
instead of chasing them around all the time.
Yes.
Also, this gives us the necessary room to get work done.
That too.
Because we don't quite have the rotation we thought we would when we planned the show out. Turns out making an hour-long documentary every other week is a bit...
Insane?
Yeah, bad.
A bit insane.
All right, so who's reading the questions? Are you reading
I mean, I'll read the questions if that's okay.
why don't you put it over
I
near you?
have a voice. I can
wanna
put it
take
over.
this where
I
you
mean,
are?
I can. Yeah,
Okay.
I can put it closer to me. Okay.
Okay.
First question. Can you do a rundown on all the pistols chambered for a 7.62-25 Tokarev?
No.
It's because we haven't really done much.
I was going to say, also, all of them, like... Aren't there, there's like random Italian ones chambered for that or something because it
it's
wasn't
a lot of random
available in the
stuff.
military market? I don't remember. But, no, we haven't even done the Tokarev yet. The TT-33, well, TT-30. We haven't even gotten into that point of research. So, no. I actually get a lot of questions for guns that we haven't covered. And the chances are I might know moderate details of about 30 guns beyond what we've covered so far, but it's going to be pretty moderate, and it's probably not going to be totally accurate.
Right.
And then I'm probably going to know something very accurate about maybe 4 or 5 guns that we haven't actually done episodes on, and that's about it, because you have to imagine I've spent 10 years desperately trying to learn everything about a gun, and then going into the next one and going to the next one. So people are always like, hey, what do you think about the new whatever? And I'm like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. So
God bless you.
and so I'll get questions about, like, what about this M1 carbine? Is this legit? And I'm just going, I haven't read a single line about the M1 carbine in 12 years.
Yeah.
Because
I
I've
mean, you
just
did
been doing...
casually because, you were doing your own little personal research over 2 decades, or a decade and a half ago. Yeah.
So, no, I probably don't know it if we haven't covered it very well. Okay. So,
Have there ever been stripper clip or M-block fed repeating shotguns? Oh no, that jumped really far down.
May, you're
What
terrible
did you
at this.
do?
Keep clicking. It's
There
fine.
you go. I figured it out.
Click on the thing.
I can technology. All right. Have you?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's possible, but I don't know of any. I can't
Off the
think
top
of a
of my
single
head, I
one.
can't think of one. I mean, maybe one day we'll come across one and be like, aha.
Definitely. I mean, I've learned some funny things about some shotguns recently just because Ivan, the 3D print Ivan,
Yeah.
he caught the shotgun bug from me.
Oh no.
And so...
That's a good, terrible bug to catch.
Well, I pointed him in the direction of an extremely rare shotgun that I knew about. It was an autoloader. And I was like, oh, I'm not really able to keep up with the shotgun research, and this is also many years beyond where we're at, because I just still got to do the basic stuff we haven't done yet. So if you want to dig into this, just do me the favor of, if you get ahead of me and buy this rare crap, then just let me borrow it, because I don't need to own it. I just want to cover it. And he's like, yeah, done. You feed me stuff I want to eat, and then I want to scurry and find and eat, and then I'll shit it out for you.
He's one of the few people you trust with that.
Yeah, he'll come back around and loan it to me.
Yeah.
Unless he gets hit by a bus or...
Don't do that.
and
Avoid buses.
He and Matt's gun handling is making me nervous. Anyway,
Did soldiers reload cap and ball revolvers like the repercussion Colts in battle?
if they had to, I guess.
Yeah.
Generally, no. I mean, as far as I understand it, I'm not that deep into battle theory, but generally a 6-shot percussion revolver was such an advanced thing that they were like, we got 5 more than the other guy. Or we both have 6 or 5 if it was something like a Smith & Wesson metallic fire, but that wouldn't be percussion, I guess.
Yeah.
But generally, no. The reason for the multi-shot was for them to roll up and discharge at close range and get more than one guy maybe, or really...
And then get away.
Yeah. And then presumably most pistol use would have been cavalry. Pistols really weren't supposed to be an infantry thing at all. Not that no one palmed one at some point, but... Generally, I think it's a last-ditch weapon. They're not really using it until they have to. Now, I guarantee you, if they had the opening, they would have reloaded, because what else are you going to... I mean, I would reload.
Yeah, if you
But
could, if you had the
I
time.
don't think that was generally the plan.
What's your favorite overly complicated sight system that a military has implemented on their infantry rifles?
And then he went on to say
Yeah, it
that he
looks like
loves the Buffington.
Yeah, likes the Buffington sight on the trapdoor.
He just says, I really don't like complicated sights.
What?
I've never really cared for them. And then,
Oh, shoot, I was just trying to think of what's the sight on the Gewehr 98 that I like. Oh,
the Longavizier?
yeah, I love the Longaviziers.
May does like the
I
Longavizier.
don't know why. Like I can see down that racetrack and I go, oh, perfect shot.
I can think of many sights that I hate, but I can't think of
Many that you
I
hate.
can't think of a complex one that I really love. Probably the least annoying complex sighting system would be like the Ross Mark III's rear aperture, where it's finely adjustable.
Oh yeah.
And it's all right there, and you can just fold it forward and shoot it like a normal rifle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really bad about just being like a windage guy. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I
So
have
you don't like the Arisaka
I have
spread
a,
out?
I have a foul that the standard default sliding like 4 or 5 position sight. Mm-hmm. I immediately gouged a pair of glasses, like damaged a pair of glasses trying to shoot it because it sticks back further than you think, and it just right there.
Yep, I remember that.
And I went. So I switched it for the paratrooper aperture. Actually, Henry at 9-hole seems to hate that thing. Meanwhile, I can walk it up 550-ish yards of range, and I'm fine. I just go, oh, the holdover's here, okay, boom. But like I Kentucky everything like a jerk, and it seems to be one of my few natural talents. Is
I
to just,
Kentucky everything like a jerk. That's a good saying.
I don't know. I'm not a fast shooter. I'm not a skilled shooter in any way. But my one saving grace, and guys have witnessed this, is that I will take a target at 300 and just chase the edges of it for a second to get a feel for where the rifle's shooting with like 5 rounds. And then as long as I can get on it, I can read where it hit, and then I can be like, well, in theory, boom, boom, boom. And then I just push it out. And so I tend to be fairly quick at finding targets with just sort of over aim and using other markers than what's on the ground. Now, of course, they're not moving. So,
No, they are very stable. So there is that.
but just I'm very lazy with my sights. I'm like, just give me a hole.
Just give you a hold. What do you think is the most misunderstood firearm? I remember back in the day you were telling me the whole reason you started the series was actually because the
I couldn't
Mosin.
figure out the Mosin.
Yeah, you were looking online. People were saying how simple it was, and you kept looking at me like, how?
We were talking about it on our podcast. That's gone away apparently because that came up on Reddit like a week ago, and everybody's just like, "Oh, the Mosin's really complicated, and it's blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh my god, finally!"
Thank you. It's like,
Because for the
oh.
longest time, people would say, "Oh, it's a simple rifle made by the communists," and I'm going, "No,
All the forums back in the day.
it's a czarist rifle made under extremely weird circumstances that's way too complicated for what it does." And now people seem to understand that, and I'm going, "Okay, thank you. We're back." The reason they kept making it wasn't that it was good or that it was simple. It was that the tooling was already set up and everybody was trained on it.
Right.
And changing that would be bad. So,
Fair.
what else?
Do you want to say anything
I'd say,
else?
well, that doesn't really answer the question because that was a misunderstood firearm. I'd say, like, currently, the most misunderstood firearm? Probably the 1911.
Why the misunderstood though?
Because everybody thinks it's original. Like, everybody thinks that John Browning marched out there and went, this is the best way to make a gun, and just did it. And the answer is he had a pretty novel locking system that had to go through many refinements, some of which were dictated by the fact that 45 was a murderator. But because 45 was so difficult to work with, it forced him to get really efficient on his parallel ruler twin link system and get it down to a single link and even start considering camming, or just camming lugs.
Right.
And so in the modern sense, we mostly don't use the link. We mostly use just a camming link instead of a rotating one, or camming a lug, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's like that got him to be more efficient fighting the government for 45. If he had been left on his own and not forced to consider 45, he probably wouldn't have made those refinements.
That's fair.
And then that's just the upper part, right? Just the locking mechanism, considerations for the slide. His original design, the slide would just blow off and hit you in the eye if the key came out.
Right.
So,
I mean, that's a fun feature.
Yeah, so this whole like shrouded slide thing had to come from government testing and pressure, but he would have gotten there eventually. That part he would have eventually done. But the
and
one
the
that
grip change with the rake.
the one that thinks if Georg Luger's Luger hadn't been available in the market, I don't think John Browning would have magically made the most ergonomic handgun, because he wasn't until he got in competition with the Luger.
And he went, wait a
And
second.
then they frankly stole features from the Luger and made them different enough to make them patentable so that it became a more efficient version of those features for the Luger, but it is very clear to me that in a vacuum without the Luger, the Browning pistol would have never gotten very ergonomic until post-war, post somebody else coming in and doing ergonomics. A comparable pistol would be like the Steyr Hahn, where it's still kind of squared up and bulky, but it's got kind of a good idea to it.
I mean, to be fair, that I said that before. That was one of the ones I loved back in the day. For its 1911 similarities.
You would have had a gun as good as the Steyr Hahn from Browning, but you wouldn't have had it better than that, I don't think.
Well, at least not stripper clip fed.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would have had detachable magazine. You consider that from the start. But it probably would have been like a weird release. Like, none of this cleanness that you get, I mean, just the feel of the 1911 is really born out of trying to compete with the Luger. Yeah. So.
Fair. Given all the time you spent looking at designs, do you have something you'd like to someday make or invent?
I have lots of ideas. I'm not telling them to you. I might actually make money on some of them. I have some really good ideas. The problem is I've never known anybody that could put them to metal in a sincere way. I've known a lot of people that can brag about it insincerely, but it doesn't happen.
Right.
I've had some influence on some 3D print designs because I hang out with Matt LaRose here at Fudbusters. And so I wander in and out of there and I talk to them. And every once in a while I come in with some dumb question or some idle observation and they kind of go, actually, I wonder. And not that they execute exactly what I've thought of, but they'll sit there and play with it.
Right.
And next thing I know, like 6 months later, something comes out that has this feature set modified significant enough to be efficient for the plastics.
Sure.
And so that's kind of nice. Like, but that's usually just spitball stuff, nothing I want to turn a profit on.
Right.
There's a couple things in my head. I had a friend that's an engineer who reached out, and we were talking about specifically handgun development, and I had a very strong idea of where the market should be going, but no one has taken a single step in that direction. And I still believe pretty strongly in that.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway.
We'll see if anything comes of that one day. How did manufacturers determine the heights for the steps for pre-calibrated adjustable sights to 0 at different ranges? For example, switch from smokeless to small bore Spitzer bullets. Did they just use trial and error, or was there some actual...
You run the ammo. I mean, you would take your barrel and your action and you would shoot it at various marked ranges. And
I mean, I'm sure they erred on the side of caution and would aim at closer areas.
Well, you also had to
and then walk it out.
You know, I've seen stuff written about this. I haven't gone into detail because I usually don't pay that much attention to this kind of thing because it's a bit like asking how do they know to what depth to cut the steel, and the answer is a little trial and error and pressure testing.
Sure.
So, but I have noticed that for sighting a rifle, because it has to be for sort of general all conditions, they do have to kind of make a projection of what environments they're going to be fighting in. And then they have to go and shoot the rifle in those environments and get the ranges that way and see what's actually happening. Because you don't think about,
humidity?
Humidity, thank you. I don't know how I was locked on. You don't think of humidity versus temperature versus, humidity. Altitude, whatever. Yeah. So they'll have to go and play with that and figure out what average they want to take because there's always going to be a little whatever. But the good news is, militarily, you're shooting for like here to here. You're not shooting for, it's not like we're thinking of with target rifles. But it's generally how it goes.
Fair. We might answer one more question and take a pause for the cameras. Mannlicher used Packet. He read that Pedersen is associated with the M-block term creation. Did he really coin the term M-block, or was it already used to describe the Mannlicher packet loading system?
I have no clue.
That's a lot of research that would go into that one.
M-block is a term I've just been using. I haven't actually been doing the etymology of words. So I have in some cases where people want to argue with me about certain terms, but
with revolvers specifically.
No one's ever argued about what an M-block is. I tend to favor, I could keep an eye out for it now that it's been asked, but I'd have to really pay attention to my resources. Generally, language was very sloppy back in the day, and people don't like this answer, which is that, like, we came up with the revolver terms, like you were referencing. Every revolver patent within the same country for over a century used entirely different words for the same mechanisms over and over again. Because people were just sort of describing a thing, and no one sat down to catalog it and categorize it. And that's sort of a much more modern thing when we're going back and trying to define terms. And we're way pickier about terms than they were when they were inventing this stuff. So I don't know, I'd have to go look. But to be honest with you, I just like M-block because it tells you neatly. I mean, packet would be fine too. I don't
Yeah.
care. But M-Block's kind of taken over. It works as a thing we understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like stripper clips for stripping.
Yep.
And then the British tend to use Charger for all sorts of stuff, but I actually prefer Charger for...
I like Charger. That's a good one, yeah.
I like Charger for one where it leaves it behind.
So like the Swiss rifles?
Yeah. Like a full encapsulated... No,
Or the Betterly?
because the problem is, I guess a stripper clip could almost be a subcategory of Charger
It could be.
because you charge with it and it's
But
discarded.
clip implies it's small.
Yeah, and retained like that.
Yeah.
So I tend to favor stripper clip Charger being sort of like a K31 or a Vetterli 4-shot.
Yep.
And then... Because the Vetterli 4-shot's really interesting. It's almost like a slug. You just throw the whole thing in there
Yeah,
and yank it
rip
back
it out by the cord.
But you see where I'm at. I haven't stopped to think about when a word came into fruition, except for the words that I was trying to define because nobody agreed on them to this day. Mm-hmm. But all right,
Yeah, let's pause with the camera. So that's going to happen a few times. All right, next one. What do you think the reasons are for the two-piece stocks not being more common?
I think they just sort of started by not doing those, and then so the reason you would have a two-piece stock is that it lets you select better grain boundaries for both sections of the stock. Mm-hmm. It also lets you use smaller pieces of wood without having this one big contiguous piece of wood.
Right.
It lets you use softer woods if you need to, in some places not others, yada, yada, yada. The Japanese use a two-piece stock that isn't even separated by the wrist like you would think of, like a Lee Enfield or a Lebel where the action separates the two halves.
Yeah.
With some metal, that's one way. The Japanese would dovetail theirs and fit them together. Mm-hmm. The answer is, in terms of the Japanese dovetail, probably not gun because it just took extra time and the material cost wasn't so high that it was worth the extra time to them.
Sure.
Or they might not even thought to develop it. The two-piece stock in terms of like the Lebel and the Lee Enfield versus everything else, to be honest with you, it's probably just how they were used to designing guns. You just get in a habit of
I thought it
designing
had to
a
do with
certain
like a rigidity kind of thing where it was better for the strength of the piece.
No, it's two-piece is usually better. I can't think of a case in which two-piece is worse, actually.
Yeah.
But the reason they'd stick with a single piece instead of doing a two-piece, it can be as simple as aesthetics, but it's probably just habit. That's how their stock making was set up.
Also the machine tooling and stuff like
That's what
that,
I'm saying.
having to switch all that out would be way more costly.
If you already have a stock machine that just works this way, it's like,
Why would you change
are we
that?
really getting breakages? What's our breakage rate? It's really low. What's our cost to make a new stock? It's really low. You know, it might have just been something they didn't really think was that important.
Fair.
I couldn't even guarantee you, because you're kind of asking to prove a negative. I couldn't guarantee you that every single rifle that came out after the two-piece stock, somebody went, hey, should we make a two-piece stock? Chances are on 90% of them, no one even stopped to say, should we do that? They might have just not been a question.
Why would you
So-
think to ask it?
Yeah, I mean,
Unless you were
unless
having the breaks.
Well, you're looking at another stock and you might, but you'd be amazed at what people don't think to pass through. Lots of data does not get updated.
Yeah.
So,
Modern designs are pretty different from the originals. Do you think the common modern designs are correctly related to as Brownings?
modern designs of what?
I'm thinking pistols is what I'm thinking he's referring to.
Modern
here.
designs are pretty different from the OG, original gangster.
No, I said the OG. He said originals. I was
original,
just I was shortening it.
From the original, do you think modern designs are correctly referred to as Brownings? Mm-hmm. Modern design, what, he didn't say pistols or anything like that?
I mean, I could check real quick.
All right, we checked.
We did check. It was about pistols.
That was baseball. When you guys submit very large assuming blank, 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 blah, 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 blah. Here's the question in one sentence. More stuff after. May has to cut out part of it. We can't read the whole thing every time. So, yeah, he was asking about Browning pistols. Yeah, it's fair to call them Brownings. Browning actually considered, as far as I understand, Browning considered a hard lock camming action. And then I never did figure out why he rejected, but it is mentioned in the literature. I have to go back and look to see if there's proof or if they're referencing a prototype of some sort I haven't seen.
Right.
But Browning definitely knew about hard cams. Like he had hard cams in other guns before the 1911. The other aspect would be locking into the shoulder of the ejection port on the slide. That actually appeared first, as far as I know, on the Whiting pistol, which would have been Webley's automatic. So I guess we've said it before, it's kind of like you'd have to call it like a Browning Whiting would be what most people are using nowadays in terms of how the lock works.
Fair.
Because to my knowledge, Browning didn't lock up against the slide ever. He just used the lug system.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And locking into the ejection port on the slide is actually really efficient. So
It is, yeah.
I think it'd be fair to call it, like most pistols, being a Browning Whiting lock work. And then from
Derivative.
there you could add more names to that, if it's a pin through cam or just a shaped cam or whatever the case may be. There's some changes there, but that's where I would start at least.
Yeah, that's fair.
He certainly defined the modern handgun. There's no way around that.
What are your ideas on why rifles such as the Piper 1893, yes, that revolving carbine there on your wall, never really caught on even today?
Is it supposed to be revolving rifles? Is this another...
It's just what's your question?
Was it rifles such as the Piper 1893?
Yeah.
So are they referring to just revolving rifles is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then probably because they suck. That's the only way to add capacity is to add girth.
More, yeah,
And then-
a larger cylinder, so then eventually it's a little comical.
Failures are very likely to cut up your arm or wrist if you're holding ahead of the cylinder. Even with a gas seal, it's not a perfect system, so a breakdown in that front would cause problems. If it is a gas seal, it's needlessly complicated. And then, to be honest with you, revolvers are multi-threaded operations. So your average semi-automatic has only one series of operations.
Right.
A goes to B, goes to C, goes to D, goes to E, gets to F in a loop, and that's how it functions. This part hits that part, hits this part, hits that part.
Right.
It's very little instances of two things happening at once in a semi-automatic.
Fair.
And even then, I'd be hard pressed to say that. I mean, maybe like a disconnector system's running at the same time as something else, but it's not the kind of parallel operation in which both things must move at the right pace to come together at the right moment.
It's more linear.
Yes, and so in a revolving system, though, you almost always have to have, well, as far as I know, you always have to have parallel systems because you're rotating the hammer and you're rotating the cylinder at the same time, let alone any number of other operations like a cylinder locking bolt and stops and
Brando
stuff.
loves animating revolvers.
Yeah. So that means all this stuff has to happen at a rate at which they all come together at the right moment and in alignment.
Yep.
Which is just awful mechanically, and wear is going to impact it much faster. So yeah, not a great system.
What is the Black Powder cartridge you find the most satisfying, enjoyable to reload and shoot? I don't know about most satisfying, but the most entertaining for me was that Verndl Black Powder cartridge
Yeah,
that
Verndl carbine.
chambered in not just the carbine, but then, I mean, the specs are pretty spot
It answers
on.
both questions.
Fits in a pistol, or in the revolver.
It's a fun cartridge.
Yeah.
It's easy to make. It's fun to shoot. You can shoot out of a revolver. You can shoot it out of a carbine. It's cute out of both.
It's better to shoot the revolver one out of the carbine than it is to shoot the carbine out of the revolver. But
Yeah, but if you made the load light enough, you can shoot
just
out of it.
lighten the load.
But the way you make it is you literally take 7.62x54R and just cut the case to the right length, and then stuff the powder and bullet in there hit it with a hammer. I mean, it's that easy to reload. It is insanely easy to reload that cartridge. So yeah, Verndl carbine,
Pretty good
which
one.
you can throw in a gas or revolver and just. The problem with the gas or revolvers is not all of them are steel, so be careful.
Yeah. Be very careful. Question for the world's greatest master sub 2000 gunsmith. That's
not
you.
that good.
Yeah, apparently that's you.
Mine's broken again.
For someone with hardly, how do you keep breaking it? For someone with hardly, that was my question. How about
Look,
that?
I love the Red Lion forend. I love it. It doesn't have a key. It doesn't like lock.
Okay.
Instead, it's just pure yoke. It just clamps on, right? Well, I had one, and I had to take it off because the gun itself broke. It was Kel-Tec's fault. I sent it in, got it back, but they had obviously not retightened this crap.
Well, yeah.
They had to take it off to get in there, but then they didn't retighten it. So I'm like, oh boy. So I tried tightening it, and I remembered from last time I had to tighten the crap out of this before it would stop sliding around. I was wasting all this time going to the range and back and forth. So I cranked down on it, it just snapped because it is like aluminum. So then I sent it in, I called them and they sent me a replacement part. I was like, okay. So I tightened it, I thought enough, and then I went and shot it and it shook loose, and then I went, I haven't hammered it back down and
then retightened
and
again.
then re-zeroed and then walked again until it break. Like
I
it's
love
just,
the sub 2000.
I love the sub 2000.
Okay.
I love the Red Lion forends. He needs to add some sort of keying system. And by the way, there's meat on the sub 2000 that he could have done this with. The only problem is now they've changed the sub 2000 again. So who the hell knows?
So it's sub 3000.
I don't know. So what was the question?
What was the question? For someone with hardly any access or experience with power tools, is it possible to cut a new slot to lock the bolt open to the left side? So like, I'm
Probably.
guessing like a slap off kind of
Well, I cut a safety notch in my slap off section.
Right.
He's saying, can you just cut a new safety notch entirely? And the answer is probably. I would check to see that the extractor doesn't get in the way of anything, but you're already back behind the. You're just in a tube. So unless there's some sort of alignment I don't understand in which an extractor can escape the side of the tube, I think it's just a tube.
Yeah, okay.
That should probably work, but to be honest with you, I'd have to look at it. But you could do the same thing. You just look down the tube.
With your eye holes.
If it's literally just, if you look for where the bolt is, like, take it apart for a second. It's not hard. Pop out the rear pin, pull it out the back.
Okay.
Look down the tube. If there's
nothing that
if it's just a seamless tube where the bolt head is when retracted, then you can rotate it 180 degrees, 360 degrees. You can rotate it all you want. I mean, it would cut through the thing if you could do that.
Yeah.
But, like, you can rotate it as much as you want.
Yeah.
So I don't see why you couldn't. It sounds perfectly doable.
What do you think is the coolest cartridge that never saw full production or wide acceptance?
No, you already know this.
We did get to see one, because of the Moondragon, that 5.2 that looks like a little crayon.
Yeah, that thing
I want to
was
hear that on our audio.
Yeah, I want to see
but
that.
it would. I'd be so curious the sound on that.
I'm kind of terrified to shoot 2 in a row, though.
Yeah.
In case that little thing in the back gets loose in the bore.
If we ever got to shoot one with our audio equipment, I'd be so happy.
Yeah. 5.2 Moondragon.
That's that one. Easy. Having handled both the Lewis gun and the BAR, both of which saw service in World War II as squad support weapons, which mix do you think is the more effective combo?
What does he mean by mix?
Oh,
Were there rifles mentioned there too and you lost them or something?
Oh, God, if I had to do that again.
Well, then it must have been too complicated of a question. I mean, if we're talking about Lewis gun versus BAR, the BAR is not a light machine gun. And, I mean, FN kind of got it there. Like, we can start talking about the monitor, but yeah, I would still argue, even though it was much more usable in that configuration, I would still argue it's not a great light machine gun. We saw that in Project Lightning.
Right.
We actually haven't shot the BAR from World War II for the show. We shot the 1918, which is fun, very different, actually.
Very different, yeah, I would agree.
I don't think you've ever shot a BAR in 1918 A2. I have, but I don't think you have.
That's a good question. I don't think I have, actually, technically.
It has no semi-automatic mode of fire.
No, I have not.
Okay. So, I hate...
That was a good way to instantly tell me that, actually.
Yeah, really,
that was perfect. No, I have not.
I shouldn't say hate. I generally dislike the A2. Like, I don't care for it. Because it's under capacity. The fire rates are all wrong for what it does. It's too heavy for what it does. When you're talking about the kind of strategy you see, because we haven't covered this, so you're not familiar with it, but when you talk about sort of pin and move World War II tactics, it doesn't do what it should do. No, it doesn't do it at all.
Man, it really was not made. It was made, but doesn't feel like it ever fits the roles it was supposedly made for.
Now, the Lewis gun is also not ideal for this role, but it can do it. Because we saw that in the episode, just by being the most advantageous light machine gun of that period means that it's the most likely to do a good job
at a lot of roles.
At another role down the line, but still not really well positioned for it. It's just a lot better than the
It's just more versatile.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Did Colt ever experiment with any middling frame sizes or for C and B revolvers? Cap and ball. Like the Remington belts or police size revolvers? Or was it simply just like the Dragoon, the Navy, and the Pocket?
Yeah, he always did. I mean,
Mama,
not always.
Papa, baby.
It was always Mama, Papa, baby with him. That doesn't mean there were developmental sizes all over the place. Like if you look at the prototype Colts, they're everywhere. But you got to understand, Colt's main focus was mass manufacture. So even when he did do weird mix-ups, it wasn't that he changed the frame size. That's what he kept the same. He would change the cylinder. So he'd rebate the cylinder to get a larger caliber coming out of smaller guns. So you could get like a pocket one that would shoot 36s.
When he changed the barrel lengths too?
Yeah, but that's easy too. That's the same thing. It's like this minimal change so that he could reuse as much machining time as possible. So you would just take a 32 frame and stick this jumped up cylinder on it, make a cut in the frame because the frame was already... You basically take it straight from 32 production, make an extra cut in it to fit the cylinder.
Okay.
And then shove that cylinder on there, shove the front end with the proper bore on there, and you're ready to go. Now you have a tiny 36. So or you'd have like the 1860, which is an 1851 that was jumped up for 44. So he tended to do that kind of stuff so that he had the minimal number of frames because he was keeping that base the same.
Production cost low.
Yeah. So that, just not even... Yes, production cost, but just volume. Production volume. We're making 1 million of these frames. It's kind of like what we do with our t-shirts, actually.
Yeah.
We have to tell people, it's like, no, we can't
We can't do a bunch of
can't
different
just
color
do-
shirts.
Some guy will be like, I want 7X. I'm like, I'm sorry. We have to have 100 7Xs or it doesn't cost, it's going to cost us so much money.
Just for a couple for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's all about batch. So,
And even for like base colors, we have to be like, no, these are set base colors on the shirts because we have to
Right.
batch order X number.
it's always advantageous always to have like 2 black shirts because then we can order more of those shirts. You
Yeah.
guys don't think of it because you think of them as 2 different shirts, but we have to think of them as the same base product that we're ordering in before we modify it to put it back out.
Yeah, same deal. You're right. Where do y'all get your lead for casting bullets? It's more of a question for you.
I
than
almost
me.
always just buy it. Like, people are probably thinking, well,
Where do you get it? I buy it.
No. They're asking like people used to get off lead. People used to get off of wheel weights and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
When this was more available, and there are sources like that. But to be honest with you, that's a scrounger's game, and we just don't have time, and we can't handle the inconsistency that comes from that. So generally, we buy it to the hardness
So like
we
the
want.
impurities mixed in can be a
Right.
problem.
It depends on the cartridge. It depends on what we're trying to do. Generally, harder for newer stuff and softer for older stuff. Just because of the way it was, you start to see hardened lead bullets towards the period where you start jacketing bullets.
Sure.
But we ran into such problems with impurities trying to do the scavenge method. It was amazing. I still remember just trying desperately to load some 44 into a repro revolver and being completely unable to deform the stuff and being told, no, because of a friend that cast it.
Right.
And then he was like, no, it's all lead. And I was like, where did you get the lead? I can't remember where he said from. And I went, okay, so it's definitely not, we don't know the
Right. So
purity
it's
of it.
denser than what you think it is.
So I turned around and made it out of just like lead that we
Right.
bought. And
Totally
it was
different.
plunk. And I went, yeah, okay. So then I could chase it up
Cut
a
a
little
ring
bit.
then.
You could sit there and doctor it yourself at that point and just get it where you need it, you know. But
that's fair.
generally just commercially is the way we go. What you want to do for your own use because you're tinkering, go nuts, try out all sorts of stuff. Why not? Especially if you're using cheap Italian reproduction revolvers, like by all means, but it's just not what we do at this point.
Yeah, that's fair.
At this point, it sucks, but we spend a fair bit of money just trying to stay ahead of our schedule because, man, I do not have. You and I don't have 40 hours off in a week anymore.
Yeah, no. It also when it comes to the film sessions, we need for them to shoot when we take them out, and black powder shoots are very time consuming. That's another word, annoying. Unfortunately, because they just take so much time and effort for setup for multiple camera angles, like y'all see.
There's always percussion problems. There's always cartridge problems. There's always
Yep.
they're just such an
Primer
annoying.
pop offs, just not going.
Yeah, and when something goes wrong, you can't cut the film and just stitch it in because there's black smoke everywhere, so you guys will see. And then
So those have to be perfect shoots every time.
and they have to be completely reloaded every time there's a problem.
Right.
You have to sit there and redo the whole thing.
Oh,
And-
there's a 18-wheeler driving by that's honking its horn at the same time. Well, there's a redo right there.
Yeah, I know. And then they are the most likely to have problems anyway because the
Yeah.
percussion cap messes up or the whatever messes up.
And
or
the
you get capped in.
reproductions that we use specifically, so there are always going to be some issues there. I mean, we never were able to shoot the reproduction root revolver that we
No,
got.
couldn't get it figured out.
Nope.
Like, just pain.
All right, let's answer one more, then we'll pause the cameras. Did you come across any part specification differences between the Winchester 1887 12 gauge and the Winchester 1887 10 gauge?
I mean, I wasn't really looking for it, and I didn't have a 10 gauge in hand to compare them, but presumably they are different because they're
Different
the
sizes?
scale of the cartridge is different.
Yeah, I would
I mean,
think
we
so.
made the one note of the extractor screw being in a different spot, so that
Yeah.
alone must be different. I'm not sure. Are you looking for parts for one?
That'd be
I
interesting.
don't know whether
That'd be
I need more
interesting.
context, but probably not the same parts entirely. I don't
No.
know what might be the same or what might be different, but
Mm-hmm.
no, there's probably a fair few different things in there, I would think.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, let's take a pause for the cameras real quick.
Okay.
Okay, from 1900 to 1950 timeframe, common consensus was that the bolt-action rifles were able to be mass-produced
Easier than semi-automatic.
Yep, for massive armies, sure. And when Garand broke that more or less in World War II, do you think it was just a matter of machining and production techniques that held semi-autos being the main long arm of militaries for so long?
Did it break it? Well, I haven't done the Garand research, but I'm not sure that a Garand's cheaper to make than a bolt-action rifle. I mean, maybe the Garand, because the Garand's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. But then look at what they actually end up adopting. There's no way the SKS was as cheap to make as...
No.
it might have been as cheap to make as a Mosin. Mosins were fairly complex, but a simple bolt action. I mean, if you were really trying to do like a Mauser 98, Actually, Bowser 98 is not a good example. It's kind of, it's like they're a little complicated for what they actually had Nambu, like a Type 38 Honeysuckle, Type 99. Those are fairly simple to make.
Yeah.
Like they're just a machine tube, good barrel. They have some weld and grind processes in them that work out pretty well. And so those, I mean, you could not tell me that you can make a semi-automatic as cheaply as you can make a good Nambu Type 38, Type 99. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know. The Garand really was just that finally somebody committed to mass manufacture and then pushed it through. I'd have to go look at the numbers because I don't actually know how hard the U.S. went after this. I do know, again, this is that thing I said. I probably haven't read anything about the Garand in 12 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
But the Garand didn't get going as fast as people think it did. Like we kind of like bit off more than we could chew and then just went ahead and swallowed it. Like it reminds me about so many other scenarios in which, you know, you make a hard commitment and then you just go, nope, we're doing this. And you just fight your way through. And once it's moving, it's moving. And then that sets the standard for everybody else. But I don't know, I have to look into it.
Yeah. I mean,
would say
eventually we're
everything-
going to get to the Grand Research and you'll find out.
Everything I can think of other than the Garand in that period feels to me to be fairly complex to manufacture by comparison. So it may just be the efficiencies of the Garand brought it down enough. And then the will of the U.S. was just enough to kind of like, but still, we know we didn't just issue Garands. Like we still had a ton of World War I leftovers and updated World War I leftovers in that war for rifles. I have to look into it more, but I couldn't give you a strong answer for that.
Fair. World War II. Let's see. All right. Why did it take nations so long to realize that most soldiers can't hit anything beyond 300 yards?
I think they always knew it. They always
Did
knew
anyone just come out with an article being like, aha?
No, I mean, they've always known that the groupings got, like,
Or says you got further out.
Well, look at all the British doctrine. The targets got bigger and bigger the further out you went. Yeah, okay, they're shooting at 1,000 yards, but they're shooting at a target this big at 1,000 yards because they're relying on
No people that
a
big.
series of fire from multiple guys. So I think they knew their hit probabilities went way up at shorter ranges. They certainly had carbines that were sighted shorter ranged. I think we kind of... I do think we kind of work things backwards a lot, and we go, oh, well, we found out that all the fighting happens at shorter ranges, and it's like, tell that to the Boers. You know, the people have fought at long and short ranges, and it depends on the environment, and it depends on the technology in play. Mechanized warfare really reduced the distance. Urbanized warfare really reduces the distance.
Right.
Jungle warfare really reduces the distance, just visibility-wise. Really, the more people there are on Earth, the shorter range the fighting gets because it's just we piled up more stuff. You're not on a frontier anymore.
Right.
And then I think there was also probably an element of, well, in World War I, they certainly learned that they were firing at each other at under 300 meters most of the time. But after
the vast majority of the time, yeah.
After World War I, nobody really kind of moved to the intermediate cartridge right away, probably because they thought, well, hold on, the only reason we ended up in this trench situation is because we let that happen. And so everybody started thinking about fast strike and deployment and technologies to try to make sure that they didn't end up in a stalemate again.
Right.
Because a stalemated war is always messy. I mean, we see that today.
Yeah.
Once the war front stagnates, it just becomes a meat grinder. And so you're supposed to win and lose wars over maneuvering, not by just sitting there and having the best semi-automatic or automatic rifle with the perfect cartridge for firing at short range.
Right.
Because you're really unlikely to take much territory doing that anymore anyway. And combined arms is really the name of the game after World War I. So I guess I'm kind of off on a rant here, but I think what happened is people finally deprioritized the infantry rifle enough to be comfortable with a smaller range cartridge. And even that being said, what are we doing now? The U.S. is adopting a backup to another more powerful cartridge. Like right now, we're all having this argument about the new cartridge because it wasn't 223 wasn't cutting it at longer. Because what do? We wandered into a place where it was spread out and less
needed
popular.
long range, and it's like, oh crap, okay.
So
Let's see what we can figure
I
out.
think it's just a cycle at this point.
Through the lens of hindsight.
Lens of
hindsight. I don't know why I couldn't say that. Do you think the U.S. military was right or wrong in insisting on the 45 ACP for the 1911 over, say, 9mm Parabellum? I mean, we did the tests, unfortunately.
If you're going to have a magazine capacity, like if you're going to have a single stack magazine, 45. It's going to be uncomfortable to some people. They're going to say, well, the Polish Ratum's good, you know. Mm-hmm. No, I'd take the 1911.
Yeah.
If you're going to give me less than like 12 cartridges, I'm taking the 45.
Yeah.
I know that's a boomer statement, but
it's definitely going to stop.
if I have fewer shots, I want them to hit, you know.
I want to hit hard.
Yeah, if I, you know, it's like, I'm not that comfortable with 38 special
Right.
on a 6-shot. I mean, it's okay, but if I'm betting my whole life on it,
Right.
I'll take the 357 or maybe keep going, you know. Now, when it comes to capacity, though, okay, you start giving me 12 rounds of 9mm instead of 8 rounds of 45. Now we're talking.
Yeah, that's going to be a major difference.
Right, that gives me a lot of decision-making
So is
ability.
4 rounds the difference you'd really put it at, or would you be closer to 3 or 2? Because would you do 10 rounds of 9, or would
I
you
don't know, it gets to be it's a sliding scale.
Yeah.
It depends on ergos, too.
That's fair.
But I do...
That's an argument we got into about the Savage 1907 at one point. We were going over our favorite or the top 10 pistols.
I'm not terribly impressed with single-stack 9mm pistols in terms of my own confidence. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
That's fair. Okay.
But if they had just gone double-stack 9mm, which no one was doing at that time...
No.
Then, yeah, that would have been the really smart move, as we all see. I will say 9mm is fairly low on the envelope. A lot of people have this argument over and over again still today. You got to remember that 9mm Parabellum was the 7.65 Parabellum. Wait, 6.5 or 6.3? I always get that confused. Anyway, it's the smaller, it's the 32 Parabellum. And then it was a bottleneck case. And they said, how big can we possibly make it? And they did the same thing as essentially 40 Smith & Wesson. They said, we'll jump it up as big, 9mm. We just go for a straight wall case almost. And that's what we get. And that was very much a compromise. It wasn't that impressive looking on paper. And we had just had problems with 38 Colt. So we weren't eager to go to this, you know. We weren't buying what the Germans were selling. So we were like, nope, cavalry want to go back to what they knew was good, 45. And it's not an insane proposition. It's just one that was extremely demanding on the technologies available at the time. And when you saw people really struggle to make a 45 ACP handgun at that time.
I really did, yeah.
And there really wasn't a lot to compare to the 1911 for many years to come in 45. It's not until much later that you see competitive 45 pistols.
Fair.
So today, yeah, you can do a lot better than 45. There's other ways to get that, you know, power. But at that time, hardball ammo.
45.
Limited capacity. Yeah, I actually kind of...
I kind of get it.
You know, we're thinking like Hydroshock and, you know, we got so much cool stuff now. But they were, like, you know, the rules of war said they couldn't do that. It had to be hardball. And then they had that little magazine. No, I don't know.
We know the influence of Browning on the FN products, but do you know if other FN designs were introduced in America because of this relationship?
I'm trying to think of an FN gun that wasn't made by Browning back then.
I don't know of any off the top of my head.
That's the only thing
but
I
then
can
again,
think.
I know less than you do.
The FN products I can think that they tried to introduce to America later on would be like the high power and the foul, and we went, no. Like, we did.
That sounds very American.
I can't think of the Americans ever listening to anything anybody else said other than stealing the Mauser. But just trying to I mean, the Krag, but that wasn't from FN either. That was earlier. The Bene Merci, the Hotchkiss, that was a good decision. If it's awful, we'll take it. Like, I don't know.
Why? Did someone go, that's rad? And just
I'm trying to think. I can't really, like... I mean, we blatantly... Colt & Smith & Wesson blatantly stole the Belgian revolver design, but nobody caught him, so I guess that was fine. That was good. It was good revolver design.
Oh, there you go. We should pick something good.
I can't think of anything from FN coming back. To be fair, they almost exclusively made Browning stuff for a long time there.
Fair. In your Gewehr 98 or Turkish Mauser research, did you come across records of German World War I production Gewehr 98 rifles exported to Turkey?
I mean, they surplused a bunch over to the Ottoman Empire. There's plenty of them that turn up with the little crest on them.
Yeah.
And you can bet that
Didn't we show it in the episode?
The Entente was not just handing those over right away, I don't think.
Check the episode. I think we talked about it briefly in there.
Yeah, they got a ton of Gewehr 88s too. Well, 8805s.
Yeah. Could you flesh out the copyright restrictions a little more? Like, why 1923? Is that a moving date? I mean, it is moving now. You're going to kick all the audio equipment, Othnius.
Test 1, 2. Yeah, it's okay. Still good. I got my foot stuck on it. I'm not a lawyer on this front. I dug into it back in the day enough to know how not to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. But essentially, there was an old copyright system for when copyright went bad.
Yep.
And then it got changed, and then it got changed again. Now, the old system that was in place would have meant anything before 1923 was safe. Then, or 24 was safe before, anyway, it doesn't matter. Then the second system kind of bumped it up.
Yeah.
And so for a while there, we were just stuck at that date, and we've kind of hit the wall where now the date's moving again.
It's moving every single year. It moves up 1 year.
However, that has a limit too. I can't remember what year. Because as far as...
I didn't know about this.
I could be speaking out of my butt right now. But as far as I understand it now,
that's weird.
It's death plus number of years. So now there's going to be no fixed date. You have to figure out who created it and when they died and then do the
But
math.
I don't remember when that starts.
I don't know when that... Yeah, it keeps moving up for it. It's all Disney crap, to be honest with you guys. Like, the only reason I got as far as that and the reason I don't know the rest of the story that well is because we were doing World War One. Well, World War One.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I'm clear for World War One. So I got into so many copyright fights with YouTube and stuff. And to be honest with you, maybe that's why the channel does so
period
bad.
copyright music, and then YouTube would go, no, wait, that's wrong. And you have to go, no.
Well, no, it's just a bunch of scam claimants that would claim anything that they could, and you
Every
show them the
episode
law
got
and
hit.
they'd back off. But I think YouTube just got tired of us having stuff filed on us all the time. It's such a pain trying to be like an independent creator that can't afford to just go pay for all this stuff.
Well, that stuff we shouldn't have had to pay for because that was just
Yeah, but the
public domain.
No, but they want you to. If you had just paid them for their audio library, they'd have left us alone. And that's what a lot of people do, and that's how they make their money. They make their money off of something they don't even own.
Right.
It's utterly insane.
You've discussed this in the past. What is the best what the best World War I rifles on a personal level? Okay, fine. But how much difference did the choice of gun make on a large scale?
I mean, we really like the Nambu, the Japanese. What was the other one we liked a lot?
I mean,
all
we
the
like the
semi-automatics.
Serbian 1908.
All the Serbian. Well, if we're talking, is he saying just bolt actions? Oh, no. Semi-automatics. Semi-automatics were great.
Yeah.
Like all
Really
of
were,
them
hands
by
down.
comparison to
RSC.
the... Yeah. If your entire army had semi-automatics and the entire other army didn't, in an infantry battle like World War I, it would have made a huge difference.
Huge difference. Night and day.
Less of a difference in World War II depending on what's going on,
True.
but it could still make a big difference. However, that's probably not the question that's being asked. The problem is we're probably being asked between bolt actions what this min-maxing does. And the answer is no, it probably doesn't mean that you're going to win or lose the war alone without other planning. However, all other things equal, it is a greater advantage to you. And the game in a large-scale war is by the numbers to make things more and more agreeable to your side and less agreeable. When you're doing a war of attrition, anything to stall off the problems.
Yep.
Especially when you're working at scales in the millions, you might as well think about how much time you add up when you have a rifle that saves someone 15 seconds in combat times 2 million people in combat. I know that it doesn't seem
There's
like much,
a
but
life factor in that, yeah.
yeah, it's just also you're designing a gun. Design a damn good gun, you know?
Right.
Now,
Design one that isn't going to break easily and will also be easy enough for simple soldiers to use.
but if you're saying why bother watching the show or why cover all these bolt actions because this one and that one aren't that different?
Yeah, like the whole Mauser tree, you've effectively gone through a lot of it at this point.
Okay, well, don't watch this. Yeah, but I mean, this is definitely a game of min-maxing because we're just talking about small arms. So, yeah, of course there's going to be that. The same's still pretty true, though. People are really going to push around about G3 versus FAL versus, M14 versus, well, what if you had an intermediate cartridge anyway and you did the AK and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, if they have a semi-automatic portable arm and reasonable magazine capacity, they're probably going to be fine against another semi-automatic portable arm with a reasonable, or even full auto, whatever the case may be. Combined arms, it goes back to what we said, combined arms matters more than anything else, but it doesn't mean you don't stop and consider the design goals and how they were implemented and how we feel about how they came out. People love musing about this stuff. It's all really just a combination of remembering and being entertained by what happened. So,
Fair. Why weren't there more in-block fed semi-automatic handguns during World War I period, especially in Austria-Hungary?
they had stripper clips, but not en bloc. I think.
Austria-Hungary, yeah.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't matter about Austria-Hungary because C96.
True.
to my knowledge, the reason why en bloc clips in pistols were not as popular is probably a number of factors. One, it's probably a little awkward to load them anyway. Stripper clips, same thing,
Yeah.
but
And then if they're integral already to the gun itself, the feed lips are better or should be stronger.
right. So having the feed lips in the gun means more reliable operation, and the en bloc clip would defeat that purpose unless there's some sort of weird release mechanism.
Right. I'm guessing is this because en bloc can be considered a faster load in some cases?
Oh, it's faster load than stripper clips.
So then,
But if you're already going for that awkwardness, if you're comfortable with that awkwardness, then you're doing it for cost savings. Then you might as well go full stripper clip.
right.
Because you're going to get more cost savings out of that.
Oh, you will. Yeah, hands down.
Along
Less
with
material.
more reliable feed because of the integrated feed lips in the gun, not in the clip. I have a feeling that with all that shaking and operation, non-manual, you're probably running into more and more chances of little pistol cartridges escaping and having failures. But I couldn't prove it. I'd have to sit down and see if anybody seriously tried it. My suspect, though, is that people designed them as magazine arms, and then they just went, well, stripper clip's cheaper and easier, and we're doing a mass issue, so we'll just go ahead and get that in there. Stripper clips are fairly rare as handgun options anyway, because handguns are usually officer items or specialty items, in which case it's worth the extra expense and care and training to have detachable magazines, because even in World War I, detachable
The
magazines
officer
were the
should
norm.
be able to handle that.
Yeah. So,
Or at least be liable for it anyway. All right, lost the cameras, but we're back. Who would you guys say are the top 5 most influential firearms designers?
Browning's obvious.
Yeah, that one can't argue with that.
Hiram Maxim is a fairly obvious one with the machine gun development, creates a whole class of weapons, and he does it in many different iterations and ways. It's just that he didn't necessarily get them out on the ground that fast, but still, he starts a movement that's very influential.
Yep.
Samuel Colt, definitely, not so much for the revolver itself, but for the way he changed the way everyone thinks about arms development and production. So in
Yeah,
other
with
words,
the mass production.
large capital up front. I mean, really just trying to kick just him trying to explain to people essentially how we do everything now. Large capital expenditures up front for tooling, serialized manufacture, large numbers of volume. This is Colt's vision of the future. It goes way beyond firearms.
Yeah.
He actually was a visionary in that regard, and despite being a scoundrel, well, not despite, because he was a scoundrel, he managed to get it done.
Oh, yeah. He was able to convince a lot of people.
On the cartridge side, I don't think we give enough credit over to Edard Rubin, although
Yeah, that's a big one.
that may be a statement about the Swiss school than just him, but still, that cartridge technology push was big. Now, you can say Labelle powder or smokeless powder, but it's really more Labelle's instrumentation that allows you to analyze what was going on with the powder faster that causes that jump. I think the Rubin group would have gotten there eventually.
Right.
It was just taking a lot longer with the instrumentation they had, but they were clearly moving in that direction. Small bore, jacketed, high velocity.
Sure.
Like, I really do think that was a very influential section, right? As a matter of fact, they're probably the reason why Labelle did what he did. And then more modern, I think, Stoner, just because I don't want
Why
to...
Stoner?
Well, you don't follow modern firearms that much.
No.
But if most modern handguns are derived from Brownings, almost all of them really.
And then Whiting.
Yeah, Browning Whitings. Most modern rifles are derived from Stoner, you know, either on the 15 or the 18 side. And you guys that are into modern rifles will know this right away. You'll sit there and be like, oh, this is descended from...
This is not my forte right here.
Yeah, but most of the modern rifles that are not Stoners aren't that modern anymore, and people have forgotten that it's been 40-something years since the 80s. So, well, not the end of the 80s yet, but still, it's like an average of 40 years from the 80s.
Sure.
So a lot of stuff isn't modern, but what is quote-unquote modern and still in production is usually Stoner Drive, or it's Soviet nostalgia, or Soviet momentum, which, you know, people are like, oh, then Kalashnikov, blah, 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 blah. But the problem is less so than Stoner, that they're more of a team over there, and they would... I mean, you saw in our SKS episode, they would blatantly take from each other because there wasn't this sense of individual ownership of the property rights. It was this sort of collective effort by the team.
Yeah.
And they'd compete with each other, and when they competed on one feature, whoever won, that feature would be kept. Right?
Yep.
Like
And they
that.
build off of that one.
And then they take that and they start arguing over this. And if the other guy won, okay, fine. And then it's almost like feature by feature, you could build a rifle. I'm trying not to flick anybody off.
Yeah, no, I noticed you were trying real hard.
Yeah. But they would just, you'd end up with this thing that's like, okay, technically so-and-so developed it, but actually we're like here, so he won by one thing. It's kind of tricky.
Sure. In a previous Q&A, you declared that the 1891 Carcano rifle was the best, or would be the best rifle for the Great War because of how cheap it is and easy it was for small minor nations to make for their war effort.
It was the best rifle, but it was definitely the most affordable and not bad.
Simplest. I think the 1904 Mauser Vigero is better technical, aesthetic, etc. Do you agree or disagree?
Disagree. It has no out of battery rotation prevent. You can rotate it out of battery. And that Coggins is a little...
How do you really feel about it?
I prefer a standard Mannlicher, like a Dutch Mannlicher, to the Mauser Vigera.
That's fair.
The fact that it has the flat magazine's fine, but I mean, by that argument, the Type I Carcano, the one that sold to Japan in World War II, it could have been made in World War I, but they didn't. But that staggered flush magazine, that would have been nice. But I mean, no. I see where he's going with it, but
okay, good answer.
Yeah. I still think Italy probably could have handled making the Type 38. I think they could have handled that.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated of a gun. Type 38 is a fairly simple gun too when you think about it.
Would it have been in good metal?
Wouldn't really matter that much. I mean, they had good barrel. They had good barrel metal. They had good receiver metal. They just had a very simple lock work. So Type 38, really the only thing that's that complicated about Type 38 compared to the Carcano would have been the big funky extractor. So I guess that's about it. But if they could have sorted that out, then they should have just done that.
Fair. All right, the Triple Lock in 455. Yep. He was wondering if the British were finding that they were susceptible to grime getting into the locking surfaces. Did they ever consider assigning them for naval use since they wouldn't have to deal with the muck and grime? Well, wouldn't the salty air not be great for it? You're
not going to want it to
rust.
Those exposed surfaces that wind on each other are going to rust over. A. B. I saw no mention of them considering it, but probably because they're two totally different purchasing departments.
Would the desert be better then? No sand would get in there.
They just bought.
I don't know what environment it'd do well in.
I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I don't remember any mention of the Navy at all.
Okay.
Because I don't think they did that thing of handing stuff back and forth as easily as you'd think. I think they're very compartmentalized.
Yeah, fair.
Some stuff did get handed back and forth, but it would come too little too late usually.
Fair. Did any non-Japanese nation also tie flags to their guns as a means for friendly identification?
I don't know.
It's on my head. I haven't heard us talk about any other...
He's probably talking because in the accessories market you can find bayonet mounts for the rifles with flags on them.
Oh.
I've never heard of another country having a bayonet mounted flag, but I'm also not a big accessories guy, that non-functional. So, well, it is functional, but it's not the way we think of it. Right. So that's the only nation I know of that does that, but...
That was well known for doing that.
I mean, maybe, but I don't remember anybody doing that.
You can always find out when we do our research later. In the world of small arms, what would you say is an equivalent country that has a surprising amount of native small arms designs, but also has a good mixture of foreign equipment?
Equivalent to what? Is this a direct copy, or did you do a summary copy?
Can't remember each one, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
It had massive paragraphs, and it wasn't extremely
There could have been like
necessary.
a preamble, and that's why we're seeing the word.
It's possible, but it's been a while since I copy pasted this one over. Do you want me to check
surprising
real
amount
quick?
of native small arms designs, but also has a good mixture of foreign equipment. Well, the only one I can think of that's like that is the English.
That's what we were talking about before. The English probably because they would use stuff that was sent over.
We're talking about
overseas.
this is a contemporary, or is this in a period?
Again, do you want me to check the question?
Check this one.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So he was making a comparison to, actually, post-NATO Hungary. Which,
sorry about that. I should have added that part in there.
No, that's fine. If that's a contemporary question, I have no clue. I could not tell you 5 countries' current service rifles to save my life. That's just not. I haven't looked at anything post 1970 or 80. Well, 80 I've started to look at a little bit.
Right.
But that's where I stop. You know. So I guess he's asking about a mixture of foreign and native equipment. I would say the English is what I was going to say off the basis of that. Because they first of all, the English almost have no guns that they design themselves at that time. Instead, they would they would sort of rumble around the world finding the best stuff and bring it home and make it there. And then they'd make it their own by modifying it. So like the Lee Enfield, very much a modified Lee rifle.
Fair.
All their service revolvers were modifications of Belgian designs. If you get further forward, they end up with a Czech light machine gun and stuff like that. Like they're just willing to go out and find the best technology, bring it back and
tweak it, and then be like, hey, look what we made.
So that's the first thing I can think of in that regard. The problem is he makes it a comparison to Hungary, and the problem with Hungary is it's more or less that Hungary has like, they're just right in the middle of all these power struggles, so they end up with equipment from everywhere because everybody keeps rolling over them, you know what I mean? So that you just, it'd be almost any of the other Balkan states, I guess, you know, they get rolled over every time, but then they don't have the best stuff because they're so poor. So it's just countries that get run over several times over would end up with a bunch of cool equipment at the expense of lots of life.
Oh no. All right, next one. We all know the Colt Single Action Army was brought back into service during the Spanish-American War, but how common was it really?
No, I haven't dug into that.
Fortunately, not yet. We need to do the Colt Single Action Army episode, but that's going to be
That's going to probably be one of my most hated episodes.
Oh, man.
The guns are outrageously expensive in the market because they're just speculatively priced.
And surprisingly, not a lot of people want to loan those out either.
No, well, the guys that collect them don't watch this.
Right.
And then the history is interesting, don't get me wrong. America doesn't do that much. Like, if you stop and think about like the wars we went into from the time of 1873 until its replacement in 1894, I guess, technically.
Nothing really.
It's not nothing, but it's nothing that stands out that wild. So it just gets associated with cowboy.
Right.
Which tells you how little military interest there is. I haven't done the reading on this. However, I would think, actually a fair few probably did go out if I had to guess. It would depend because, again, it's not a standard infantry weapon. However, large stocks of very obsolete stuff went out with militia forces for that war. Because, again, that was a time when we'd be like, we had a small army with modern equipment. And then we'd go, hey, grab all the states. Let's bring everybody up, you know, National Guard style. Just bring them with us. So there was a lot of fighting in which we were still using trapdoors. So
that's unfortunate.
Probably a fair few single action armies as well, but I have no idea for numbers. I have to sit down and look.
Oh no. All right, next question. Hypothetical case where you owned no firearms outside of your EDC.
Okay.
And you had reasonable funds, and with your current knowledge experience, so you right now, copy paste, what would you collect?
Cheap crap.
Really?
It's all too expensive. Like, I don't know how
you had reasonable funds. Wait,
reasonable
not
funds.
unreasonable. I thought
yeah.
Sorry,
No,
remember you read unreasonable. You said reasonable. Never
currently,
mind.
nothing is that reasonable right now.
Right, that's what I was thinking, because you were talking about how at the gun shows.
I think there's a question coming up to this. We'll ride to that.
Okay.
But if it were me in the market now, and the problem is whatever I say will change the market depending on how many people watch this, I would probably be I would go look at the stuff that was selling cheap. I would just literally sort. I would look at, and in the next 24, or no, I would look at completed auctions, sold, do it by firearms, like has to be a firearm, and then I would set it for ended in the past 24 hours.
Okay.
And I'd do a cutoff of $300, and I'd see what was selling. And then I would look at that stuff, and I would go, does any of this kind of piece together to a narrative that I like, and I could collect?
So
that would be how I do it.
But you would still collect in a narrative. Like you wouldn't willy-nilly.
No, I'm a narrative collector.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I like having a design. I'd be like, can I get a story out of this?
Okay.
In some way, be it pocket pistols or something. I don't know, but that's what I would do.
So you'd have like some lunatic with a full Beretta collection that we know of.
No, those are expensive. Look, there will be crowns in almost all these kind of collections. If you start a cheap collection, there'll still be something that costs you $1,200. But at least if there's only one thing that costs you $1,200,
you could save up. Save your pennies. I get it. If you could choose any gun no longer manufactured and make it again, what would you pick?
Optimat, Fedorov Optimat.
Really?
Yeah, I want to shoot one for the show. I know of none available for shooting in the U.S.
Well, that's fair. I could kind of get that.
Yeah, everybody would be happy if we had one. Everyone would be happy.
At this point, just because of how long it's been taking, I'd take a potato digger. just so we could get that done. Just so we could get it done, because we've been sitting on it for so long. They are, but we
don't want to loan us one, but they're out here.
Right, but that's the problem.
Hold on, that's a separate. We're gonna get a million. An actual Colt 1895, specifically an 1895 14 would be great.
Not Marlin.
Not Marlin. Because
Different.
the Marlin model is different. It's
very different.
And the worst part is, everybody asks me, how is it different? And I go, I don't know, because I've only ever handled the Marlins. I know from photos and stuff. Mm-hmm. I have schematics for the 1895. Mm-hmm. I don't have schematics for the Marlin. And even if I had both, I don't know that I want to sit down and look at schematics. My brain doesn't work that way as well. Mm-hmm. But there are distinct mechanical differences, minor ones.
You can even see it from observation.
No, you can see it from the port, the feed port, and everything. It's visible on the gun. Marlin did some simplification of the mechanism. I'm just not sure what, and I haven't found a book that will tell me everything they changed. Mm-hmm. So I actually need both. But I've had 24 Marlins offered to me, and not a single one. Does
someone know of a book that goes through the changes?
Not really. As close as anyway. But this is probably the reason why, is people can't even tell them apart. It's kind of like the revolver rule again.
Okay, so we'll take both of them.
They're two. Oh yeah, but the problem is
Same time.
Hey, you bring me a 9514, I can email one of the dozen people that will loan me the Marlin. Yeah. And then I can put them side by side and pull them all apart, and I'll figure it out for you.
Now watch, I'll go to ask to borrow one of the Marlins of the dozen. They'll go, oh no.
That's fine. I'll find it again. I'll buy it. I can't afford it, but I'll buy one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'll take a personal loan, buy the stupid thing, and then resell it. I don't care, because they are out there. You see them for sale all the time. Mm-hmm. They're on Gunbroker.
Right.
But they're Marlins. Mm-hmm. Like, specifically the models 17 or 18. I can't remember the name.
Right. But we need the true potato digger.
And we have access to the piston operated ones, mm-hmm. not for shooting, but at least for looking at, mm-hmm. up at Springfield. So we're fine there too.
Yeah.
So I guess they have an original Marlin 9514, but we couldn't shoot it.
So I think I've changed your mind. You said off the map, but I think I've changed your mind.
No, because I know they're out there. I've seen them sell and trade. They just keep ending up with guys that don't come to us.
Yeah, they just disappear into holes in the ground. Where do they go?
Anyway.
Arizona? I don't know. If you have the blueprints, tooling, knowledge needed to make, modify any firearm, what would you remake?
It's kind of like the previous question.
Kind of, yeah. We've had a lot of requests for it. I bet Lugers would sell well.
No.
Because they'd be really expensive to reproduce?
Yeah, you can't make them. So I want to treat this question different from the other one, because the first question is any gun, off the bat. Let's go. Right? Okay. This question, let's talk about it as if, because it says, the tooling and knowledge needed to make or modify any firearm. It doesn't mean it's affordable. He doesn't say all the money in the world. Right,
but he says I can have the tooling, I can have the blueprints, and I can have the knowledge.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean the materials.
Or the hours.
Ooh.
So you would still, even with all this stuff in your lap, and you try to make a Luger with all that prepaid, F you. You'll never sell two of them.
Good point.
Because they'll be $4,000 a pop.
Okay, then what would you do?
It depends. Mm-hmm. Off the top of my head, I've willingly said this to a number of people, I would probably go into like retro accessories.
Okay.
A lot of these seem to be very popular. I had a whole conversation with Controlled View about trying to make a reproduction of an early laser products thing.
Okay.
Just because it'd be fun to bolt onto a gun, it would look cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, 3D printing gets you pretty far, but I think it doesn't have the feel, Especially a lot of stuff was made out of, glass nylon.
Yeah, it's not going to have the same texture.
Right. If you can
you can copy-paste the image, but it doesn't really feel right.
You can take a lot of these early helium lasers, and if you invested in making the plastics for them, mm-hmm. and then just buying commercially available, very inexpensive internal laser components.
And just being able to fit it in there?
And just fit it in there, and the rest of it, you just put some lead. I don't know. You'd have to figure out the weight it's supposed to be.
Oh, okay. So, if you fit some, modern red dot sight or something, you could just click it in there and then just seal it and...
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a red dot, it'd be a laser in this case.
Oh, yeah, laser.
Yeah, so, because actually it'd be kind of hard to do the retro red dots. So the retro red dots are pretty gettable.
So could I get a laser pen and be able to click it in there?
Practically, because the quality was...
Oh,
the quality of their lasers was okay, but, you could get to the naked eye of somebody a compatible laser, mm-hmm. And even a good weapon laser by comparison, mm-hmm. very inexpensively. Fit it into these monster housings these things used to come in. Mm-hmm. And then you could maybe... The question is, do you modify it away from Weaver, or do you go ahead and redo the Weaver rails and everything so that it all fits together right? I'm the kind of person that would do the Weaver.
You would do the Weaver, yeah. There's no question that.
But I think a lot of guys would really like the retro accessories. Mm-hmm. And then one that I thought of that I'd really like to see, and I know a couple guys have tried this, but not any kind of big production way. Mm-hmm. The Colt made, I think it was called the 741.
Okay.
Which was just regular LMG bipod slapped onto the Colt. I think it was off the 249. I'm trying to remember now. No, it was an M60. I can't remember now. Oh crap, I'm on camera. I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They just took straight LMG bipod and they just made a bracket that would go. It's almost like take off your muzzle device, turn the barrel down a little bit, throw this thing on, put your muzzle device back on. Okay.
Okay.
And that was your thing, and then it mounted the LMG bipod. And of course, being the AR with its floated barrel, it was garbage. Like, I'm sure it sucked, but it looks awesome. It's like a 21-inch barrel. Those are gettable. So the whole thing would be like really easy for people, H&R line, with PSA. Stupid easy to make this right now. Like, PSA, go nuts. Here's the idea. Take it.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you,
Biothias.
I'd be in line to buy the dumb bipod thing that would ruin my groups because it just looks cool because it's just an AR upper. You just throw it on a different. If you could just get another AR upper from H&R and just put a different one on and it'd be funny.
Yeah.
Like, people love that stuff. So that's probably what I would be doing with my buddy or with my tooling. I would just be making accessories that I could sell thousands of because people are going to go, ha ha ha. I think people are looking for a good time right now. That's all I'm saying.
I could tell. Setting aside cost, manufacturing challenges, and whatnot, what elements and mechanisms would each of you put together to make your dream semi-automatic pistol?
I can't say.
Why?
Because I think I said it earlier, I had an idea for a dream semi-automatic pistol, which is a departure in the market. And that's mine.
Oh, right.
I'm not giving that away for free.
Okay.
However, I am of a camp of like, I'm still in the Wonder 9 camp in terms of the base stuff without telling you my secret sauce.
Okay.
So 9mm double stack,
always double
single
stack.
double. I tend to prefer hammer fire. I don't know about you.
In general, yes.
Okay.
Not striker. No.
Subcompact because it's concealed carry is usually
Still
more
a
important.
big deal. Yeah, you'd want to function both ways.
I feel there's lots of good service handguns. I'm not put out for having a good service handgun. So a subcompact handgun that I really like would be
Just
nice.
for the dumbness of it, I'd want a stock attachment option.
They don't allow that, but I would want
That's
that.
it. I want to be able to be like the C96 where it also contains it as its own little case and attaches on the backside as a little stock. I want that. I like it. I like the completeness of a project. I want it to be a whole sandwich. I don't want just the sandwich without the top layer of bread. That's what I think of with it.
Okay.
You always otherwise have an incomplete. You got to go find the case for it. Oh no! Wait, I don't have a case. Oh, it comes with the stock. Oh, that's so nice.
Everybody has moved to red dots on handguns,
Okay.
and I like them okay.
Okay.
But I am cursed for red dots. I've
You
never
are
had
cursed
one
for red
last.
dots. It's I don't know why.
I must have an electromagnetic field because
not
they
allowed.
discharge batteries. All my modern stuff's on Prism because no matter how much it's shake awake. Oh, it's blah blah blah. I have ones that I physically they don't have shake awake. It's a knob. You have to turn it to turn it on.
Yeah.
I turn it off. It's clearly off. I've triple checked.
Yeah.
I put it down. I come back 4 months later, dead battery.
So it's
Every
like
time.
So you know how like some people they call it the Midas touch. He has Sodom's touch, where
Yeah,
he
turns to
touches
shit.
one and it turns to shit.
So I
Every time.
refuse to use a red dot on a handgun.
I don't know why. It's
because
magic.
I can't keep one running, so
you
that's
really
not
can't.
going to happen.
What if it was a perfect one, like endlessly perfect, like
No,
never went
it-
bad on
it would be
a
so-
single, only that one though. Just
Red dot's superior sighting. I cannot get one to function around me for more than 3 months.
Now, just only when you own it though. Other people's,
Oh yeah, and I know guys that carry them all the time, and they have no problem.
and you will go to shoot it. It will still be fine. He'll give it back to them. It'll still be fine. However, yours no.
Yeah, I wonder if it's possible to do like a NIDAR reflex sight
Yeah.
where it's a red dot, but it also has a reflector, so that at least if the friggin' LED dies like it always does, at least it would just go.
Maybe.
I don't know. Any red dot sight that you have to re-zero to change the battery, you can F off with that because my batteries go dead no matter what I do.
Yeah, every single time.
And they're like, oh no, this battery, it's
perfect.
I've had
It runs
4 of them that
forever.
are like, no, it'll run for 2 years with it turned on. You can
It'll
turn it
run
on.
till you're 75.
Yeah,
trust
dead-
us.
dead in a week.
within maybe a month for 75. That might last that long.
Anyway.
All right, we need to take a pause with the cameras.
Okay.
All right, next question. Do you think that the little Bell 1886 could have been switched to box magazine to hold 5 rounds and get rid of the tube magazine?
Yeah, that's called the M27.
They did.
They did that.
Eventually.
I owned one at one point.
Yeah, for sure.
Sold it to some guy.
Yeah. What single feature change, mechanical modification, addition, or subtraction, assuming it's actually feasible to do, if any, could have turned a mediocre weapon mediocre weapon in service in World War I into a great one? So from mediocre to great in that period.
Steyr Hahn detachable magazine.
Yeah, instantly. That would have been amazing.
1911 small caliber double stack. To be fair, it wasn't mediocre. It's just.
But they would have made it better. Double stack instantly would have made
Winchester
it better.
1907 or the 1910 semi-automatics.
Yeah, the little
An actual charging handle.
Yeah, charge handle on those. That would be great.
Remington 8 detachable box magazine.
Yeah.
The Lewis gun was already good. But some sort of solution for the double feed jam clearing would be really nice. That was awful.
A way to load the RSC from the top would be nice.
Yeah, actually, RSC with a good box magazine could have done
Very
like a
well.
detachable magazine for the RSC would have been
better,
really good.
yeah.
Although, I'm not, well, yeah, I guess it could have worked.
It could have.
Let's see, the Browning 1917 machine gun, which everybody thinks was great, but actually was sighted wrong. So having the right sights would have been good. They also tended to crack receivers, so they reinforced the receivers, which is what you see right afterwards.
Fair.
1903 rifle was pretty good, but definitely could have gone for simpler sights.
I mean, they changed out the sights a lot on those.
Honestly, just changing the bipod position on the MG0815 would have helped a lot too.
Oh,
the
yeah.
0815 was pretty mediocre
But then teeter
as a light machine gun, but teeter-tottered so bad. Being able to have like a front and rear mount so that you could pick, that would have been pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I have an eyelash in my eye real quick.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I'm fixing my eye real quick.
Okay.
I won.
Okay, it took a minute.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good number of them out there. In the Browning BIOS, it was all Browning, but two.
Is the BIOS or is the BIOS? It's the basic in-out system.
No. It's
Oh,
not.
yeah.
You mentioned a couple. You're a nerd. You mentioned a couple of his patent designs that you would have liked to have seen an example of. In searching through various patents, what designs have you come across that neither historically significant or relevant just leap out and you go, "That's neat."
Well, I like Browning's minimalist.
Oh, I'm sorry. He said, "Ooh, neat."
Oh, yeah. I like Browning's minimalist 22, where
Yeah.
it's like the trigger is the sear is the breech block. That was interesting. The other one is Bruno and I covered a.
And that little patent episode y'all did.
Yeah. We covered. I think it was called the Storm. I want to say it was the Mount Storm.
I'm still sad that
Or is that a revolver I'm thinking of? Oh, crap,
I'm
I
sad
can't
that
remember
little
now.
episode didn't do as well as it should have because I still found that a very entertaining one to watch.
That one we found a little. Technically pump, but it's more of a slide action because it didn't have a pump handle. It was like a slide action harmonica style percussion gun breech loader, where you would put these
Now, harmonica like horizontal or
Yeah, yeah.
harmonica vertical?
They could be either actually. They
Okay.
he covered a lot of ways of doing this, but it was basically like you would preload your charge, put your ball in and everything, and then there was a percussion cap at the back of each chamber, and you would just like juke that into the gun, and there's like there was like a slide handle. I can't remember how the handle was configured. It wasn't a pump like we would think of,
Right.
but it was like a slide handle. But then it was like there's a dual barrel version. It's like a dual barrel double harmonica gun.
So then, would you still only work one mag for
I think it was
both
like
barrel?
boom boom pump boom boom pump, I think.
Okay.
Looking at it, to be fair, he rendered it a couple different ways. It was awesome in all the ways.
Okay.
That thing was terrifying. It was the assault rifle of its day.
Is there a particular rifle that you'd like to have if and when the shit hit the fan? I just said it. He said eight. He did the initials, but I said it.
I mean, we have some ARs.
We do. Yeah.
Right.
We've got modern stuff for
Yeah, I've got a
those moments.
mostly combat ready.
I mean,
rifle.
it was really entertaining when at one point we had the machine guns for all of the Project Lightning series in our den. So you walk in the door, you would just close it behind you and be like, oh.
It was terrible for like. I mean, I guess what does shit hit the fan mean? I guess but most people think of it as a societal collapse. Realistically, you want something that you can keep a lot of ammo on hand or carry it around with you fairly easy. So
Yep.
like light to power ratio is pretty. So like a good short barrel AR, and then a pile of Stanags. Mm-hmm. Generally pretty good.
Yep.
I'm still kind of, I don't know. I'm still irritated.
I guess what level of
the
shit
modern
hit the
AR
fan are
market
we
makes
at?
me angry sometimes because I see products and I just go, God, if they could just change this one thing, it would actually be good. Mm-hmm. There's so many little things where I get excited and then I try them out and I go, the implementation of this was garbage.
Right.
But no, I've got a functional AR with like a LPVO, which I guess I'm behind the times now because we keep going back and forth between magnifier versus LPVO. The reason I run it, nobody's gonna care that much, but I think I said it before. I don't like magnifier and dot because I don't trust dot as much as I like a prism that I can just illuminate or not illuminate. Mm-hmm. So for me, LPVO made sense because it was a illuminated, magnified, or a non-illuminated reticle that could be illuminated and can be magnified. It's all in one.
Right.
And I'm not playing high speed, low drag. It was just like, oh, this has all the things. None of them give me any trouble, except for it runs out of batteries every 6 months, just like all of them do. All of them do. It's just the other day I pulled it out and I was like, click. Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't look at it for 8 months, so
Yeah.
the battery's
You
out.
just set an alarm on your phone and just
Change the
them
batteries.
out. Yeah.
I keep a spare battery in the pistol grip because at this point I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna need that.
Of all the chamberings you've had to recreate for the show, which had the most potential / promise to be commercially viable in today's market? Well, you've talked about this before.
35 Remington's still in the market.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to really make that. We just bought it.
Yeah.
We didn't have to make 351 Winchester now that I think about it either, but that would be really cool in the market today.
That'd be good. That'd be fun for hunting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I always thought if you could do sort of like a PCC, but it was 351 Winchester instead, people would love that. Although it's kind of like 30 carbine too. I wonder why there's not more stuff in 30 carbine.
I don't know.
There's cool cartridges.
Not bad.
In terms of stuff I had to hand load, none of it is all that amazing because all the stuff we've had to really work up from the ground up hand load is just obscure black
I mean, some
powder.
people are really into the Japanese cartridges, like for actual hunting.
Like 7.7.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can usually purchase that too. Well, I don't know. Nowadays it's getting harder and harder, but
I mean, think about it. What is being produced currently in the U.S.? I mean,
generally the stuff we have to the stuff we have to do hand loads of for complex reasons is almost always round ball versions of smokeless cartridges or bottlenose, which nobody needs that, and then black powder stuff. Mm-hmm. So
usually.
Generally, if it's Spitzer and smokeless, we can get lucky and find a place that makes it. Now, we might have to pull the bullets and do the powder ourselves to get the velocity we want, but generally, we're not actually hand loading stuff that would be available in modern world anyway.
right.
And then we're not dealing with a lot of wildcats because there's only a handful of guns that manage to wander in, like I just said, 35 Remington, 351. Mm-hmm. But there's only a couple that have wandered in.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of handgun cartridges, but not really. 9 Parabellum does a pretty good job of being okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's
Haven't
about
really
it.
had to do much shotgun reloading.
No, and even if we did, there's modern shotgun equivalents.
I mean, the only issue is if you're trying to work an older shotgun that really likes the round crimp versus star, and that's just a matter of being able to.
Yeah, but that's not going to take off in the market. Nobody's going to be
No.
like, oh boy, I really wanted that. No, I think it's kind of a split question because I don't. Hand loads, none of it. But stuff we've handled and shot, maybe like a 351, or I think a lot of people underestimate how much they would just be happy with a 35 Remington because it's not a cool new cartridge. That's really about it. I can't think of anything.
That's fair. Were y'all to come into possession of a crystal ball? Okay, crystal ball. That gave you the opportunity to solve one firearm development mystery each by providing the missing documentation. Which mystery would you choose? Well, we've talked about that before, like even on here.
Any just Sam Colt's lies.
I want to know the truth. Was his brother, did he actually escape?
Oh yeah, I want to know
I
about
want to
Sam
know,
Colt's
did
brother.
his brother actually live and not die in the fire? Was the body replaced?
I guess it's not really a firearm though.
Oh, but I want to know. I want the hot goss. I want to know the truth. And we won't ever really get to know.
Oh my god.
I mean, do we know where his brother's buried and where he's buried? Could we do like a DNA test to find out?
I don't know. I doubt it.
I want to
I
know.
doubt we know that much.
Oh, I want to know so bad. I'm never going to get to know. That's like a go back in time wish kind of thing.
One firearms development question.
Oh, wait, shit. That was the actual question. I'm sorry. I just got really obsessed with Sam Colt.
I want to have Carlo Bodeo actually invented
I
anything.
love that scoundrel. Sorry?
I want to know, like, did Bodeo actually invent anything? That'd be interesting.
That's a good question. That's fair.
I'm trying. There's other stuff though. I swear I'm not thinking of things. Honestly, what I want to know right now is where the hell all the Francot documentation is. I've heard whispers that it exists.
Your Revolver research.
And that's currently attended but not unattended. Like it's like not well attended or something. I don't know. There's a room that has all the Francot information, and I want that. Because August Francot, it's a black hole in arms history right now. You're talking about a company that was putting out more guns than, I mean, jeez, we talk about Webley, right? Mm-hmm. All the time, Webley. Francot smoked Webley. They put out so many more guns than Webley. Nobody talks about Francot.
I really don't.
Why? Because it was all this small batch, like, oh, we made this for a week, and we made this for a week. It was like almost like Birmingham in a shop, you know? And I would really like to unravel. They made contract guns for armies and stuff. Like, there's a lot we don't know about August Francot, and it's amazing how we just sort of don't pay attention.
Yeah.
I want to know more.
That's right. All right. If you could be an all-seeing intangible eye in the sky above any one battle of Earth's history, which battle would you choose? Which battle?
Can you think of any that you really...
I'm trying to think of me as a person.
I'm tempted to say Little Bighorn just so I can go back and... Because they've traced every little thing out about it, supposedly. I want to see how wrong they got it. I don't trust that. I don't trust how well they traced it, quote unquote.
I mean, we could do the Boer Wars, and then we'd actually have...
No, it's only one battle in the Boer War.
Yeah, but we could then have a really nice episode on the Boer War, which apparently many people have asked about.
No, you're missing... He didn't say a war. He said a battle.
Oh, a single battle.
Yes, a single battle.
Oh, shit.
I feel like just the way they've guessed at Little Bighorn, I'd like to see how close they got it right.
Single battle.
The other one for me would be like I would really like to watch Lake Tanganyika.
What was that one recount of somebody saying how they had, what was an FN 1900 in an airplane, they managed to shoot down a balloon or something like that?
Just like one of the aviation, like one of the balloon battles.
If I could just pick one that supposedly that happened.
The guy that supposedly shot a biplane pilot
see.
with an FN 1900 carbine.
Can I be the eye in the sky for that one to actually be like, did you actually
get the hit? Like, or like the German that said he had a Browning automatic shotgun as an observer.
Did you really?
Yeah. Did you really? That would be pretty tempting.
Yeah, that right there. I don't want to see that. Do you have any advice or recommendations on how to expand a published article to a more comprehensive and traditional reference book format? That sounds like a you question if it's a question.
Just keep stacking. I guess I'm not sure. Do you have the data to fill a book? Because if you don't, then no, you can't. If you have the data, then you just keep putting data down.
I mean, telling the story in I
will say, I was having this rant the other day. I would very much prefer if books on arms history, and if I ever write one, I want to do it this way. I want the first chapter to just be an overview that goes, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And at the beginning, it's like, hey, don't sweat the details, we'll get there. But here's the chronology. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, lay it out.
Because half the time I go to read an arms book, it's like you get to chapter 2, and they're going, now this came out, 6 years after the whatever, and I'm like, what's the whatever? What was that? Because what they've done is they've gone by type. They're like, oh, we're just covering the pistols, and then we're going to cover the rifle, or whatever the evolutionary tree is.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, this is descended from this, but borrows from this other system. And you're going, what system is that?
Right.
Where'd that come from? And then you have to read ahead. You have to find the chapter to read part of it to come back to this. And your whole approach is messed up because you don't have a skeleton summary.
But if you have a good skeleton chronology at the beginning.
Yeah, just a chronology at the beginning.
And then you tell the story from there.
God, that makes it so much better.
Okay.
Anyway, I think he's asking... See, I don't understand that question. Is it how to take the material and puff it up? Because I don't. I actually tend to crunch data. If you're asking how to find more data...
More primary sources?
More primary sources.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, really.
Yeah, collectors' data and stuff
Museums.
Like that. I don't know, what's the topic?
A good collection of serial numbers for production.
Do you remember how this kind of came in? Did he give us his topic?
I can go search it real quick. Let me see.
Yeah, no, it's exactly as it... Yeah. No.
Okay, it's exactly as I typed it.
No.
Yeah, no, that's...
I would need more context. I'm not sure what the concern is.
I think we answered it in a way, though. Probably. All right. Let's answer this question, then we'll take a pause. What compact World War I pistol revolver would you EDC in World War I era? For a pistol, can I pick any of them? Because I'd probably just do 1911.
That's not compact.
Compact.
He's asking
Oh,
compact.
I guess Savage 1907, because
That ranks fairly highly.
10, 32, pretty
Depending on Very
solid.
small.
Revolver. Fosbury? Can I pick
No,
that?
you can't. That's compact. I think they're asking. I don't think they're asking you to pick a pistol and a revolver.
Oh, okay. Can I just pick a pistol then?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just going to pick the
I don't
Savage
think there's any
1907.
revolver I'd pick. I would pick Colt 1903 pocket hammer.
Okay, fair. Solid.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
It's compact.
And pocket hammers. Yeah, not bad. Good
No.
choice.
I win.
I mean, I think I won.
Look at camera pause.
All right, next question. What do you think would fare better in the trenches of World War I? The M1 Garand with its faster loading and block clips, or the SKS with its
SKS.
intermediate cartridge?
Okay.
Just because, like, what, 10 rounds straight in? Although mine fit 11 that one time.
It's more.
That was
It
funny.
just seems easier to use, and it's gonna do just as well, and it's gonna shoot fast, and it's got bayonet on it. They were bayoneting each other still.
They were still and using bayonets as tools. They were still good tools.
Yeah.
And it comes with it on it, so you don't have to worry about attaching anything. You just go boop.
It just seemed way more portable to me.
Oh, you're gonna make like a lot of Americans sad because the majority of our audience is America.
That's SKS.
Okay. It's 1886. Or I'm
That's
sorry,
1866.
1866. That's critical, by the way. That sucks.
Those are
for
two
a
different
year.
dates.
Yeah. And Matthias and May are moving to the west to start a new life on horseback. You can choose whatever guns, but limited to what your horse can carry. How would you arm yourself to protect yourselves from all the dangers of the trip?
Percussion.
That's what we got. It's 1866. If it was 1886, we'd have options. 1866.
I mean, there's metallic cartridge, but the hell if I'm going to be able to restock on the way.
Yeah,
And it's going to take up a lot of weight and
you're
stuff.
going out west. The options of you finding more and more towns to stop at that would have
Mm-hmm.
reloading options, yeah, it's going to be percussion.
It's tempting to be like, I want this repeater and blah, blah, blah. No, like a Whitney revolver is pretty good, or maybe like a Colt.
And I'll have a Magic Depot I'm going to stop at every
Remington
time.
might be good, like a well-made Remington.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
But like a Whitney or Remington revolver, percussion cap's fine. I have a preference for 44, but that's for weight. 36 would be better, but I don't always know if that's a man stopper.
Sure. Well, also animal stopper.
Yeah, it's true.
big-
Well,
Bigger animals.
the revolver's not really for that. And then I'd probably just have breech loading Sharps percussion rifle. Like that'd probably just be fine.
Sure.
It's enough. It's serviceable enough, and yet it's a breech loader. I have some options there. I can kind of get by with powder and ball, and I
Yeah.
can cast like just lead. As long as I have my ties, I can cast whatever.
Sure.
That sounds about right. Frontier life is pretty rough. It's just being
Oh, yeah,
able
that's
to work
bad.
with this.
If you could bring back one small arms designer, give them modern manufacturing and design tools, and 5 years to develop and bring a gun to market, who would it be? You already sort of have an answer here.
In the current environment, John Moses Browning would be useless.
Yeah.
That's the part nobody wants to hear. But he would design a holistic system, and we don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Everything's screws and pins and springs, and they're all.
Oh my God, we love screws, pins, springs.
John
That's our
Browning,
thing.
yeah, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't use screws and pins, and he wouldn't use a million springs. He would
No.
make a complicated part that uses fewer springs. Mm-hmm. So no one would want him because that would cost more money than just having a dozen springs.
So many pins. Number of pins, guys. Come on.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but it's probably just stoner.
Yeah.
I mean,
He would actually be able to survive in the market.
most of the guys weren't cut down in their prime. Most of them lived fairly long lives and were already stuck in their rut. So they're not exactly likely to innovate now. Just because they were an innovator in their period doesn't mean that they have a bottomless pit of ideas that will adapt to what they see in the market today. Mm-hmm. Many of these guys happen to be the one that was in the position to think about the problem for the first time, solved it, and then they didn't really get to solve many other problems. Browning's unique in that he solved a number of problems, but he found so many efficiencies, like how can you really guarantee that he'd find any
Right.
more? So instead of finding efficiencies, you would have to challenge him to have new design goals, but to be honest with you, his design goals were more narrow as he got older. He wasn't trying to do more weird stuff. Yeah. So no, he was doing different categories, but the design goals were narrowing. Stoner was throwing more stuff at the wall, as far as I'm aware. Then that's just a name people recognize. I'm really using it as a holdout. Like, it's almost like I'm slotting in the most modern designer that I can name that you guys would know off the top of your head. Truth be told, there probably isn't a correct answer for this. Firearms innovation just isn't what you think it is, unless somebody hits on some perfect way of doing caseless or some other modification. Then I don't think we're going to see a revolution anytime soon. We're actually towards the end of the current generation of what firearms are, if not overstretching the end. It's actually kind of curious. You don't know what technologies haven't been invented yet. So right now, if I told you something to the effect of, hey, we're all waiting around for battery storage to catch up to technology, a lot of you would understand that. You'd say, oh yeah, if we had better batteries, we could do a lot more with our technology that we can't currently do. And we're seeing that with electric cars. You know, there's a lot of problems with the weight and the risk of these electric batteries, but then there's a lot of benefits to the electric car.
And the replacement with them is insane.
But then fast charging is a mess, and because the batteries are so big, it's not like if you think about it this way, if you had a battery this big that could power an electric car, then you could just stop, pull it out like a kerosene canister. Or
and replace it with a charged one.
Stick it in there and pull out a new one. It'd just be a core charge and a fee.
Yeah.
And then you just drive along. And then that way the exchange is faster than fueling up with gas and safer than fueling up with gas.
Yeah.
But right now, that's not what it is. You got to plug in and wait for it to charge.
If anything, you should be able to basically there should be a charge port in your car so that you could somehow use the car as it's driving to power the old battery.
Well, I don't even want to talk about that. There's some recapture systems that are out there, but that would be infinite. Don't worry about it. So, the point being is
the wheel power.
If I say if I said we took batteries and made them 10 times smaller and lighter, everybody would go, oh, I can think of a bunch of applications for this, and then everything would change all at once. The firearms industry hasn't seen something like this in a very long time. We've been min-maxing the available technology that's over a century old, and that's it. We haven't developed much beyond adaptations of, like, they're iterations of what we discovered 100 years ago because it took this long to sort of plow down on them all and go, okay, how do we really efficiently do this?
It's not like computer development where a single development in the industry like caused an explosion and change.
Yeah, well, you unlock more and more possibilities the more you get compute or whatever the case. But with firearms, not so much. We're actually on the down slope. And you would need to have something like a caseless technology, a totally different combustion method, a different way of hurling the bullet to really change firearms. Alternatively, you could also, if you shrink batteries 10x, you might actually end up in an environment where you could have battery-operated firearms.
That's possible.
And you just have direct energy weapons. But that's a whole other argument, too.
Yeah. All right, next question. If you had to complete a brutality-style pistol-only match with one of the following, would you rather use a Cop 357 or a Reichs revolver?
Oh, that's your question.
I hate the 357. I'd probably pick the Reichs revolver.
Yeah, I would pick the Reichs revolver. 387, though, the 2 I've handled had the worst trigger pulls of any gun I've ever had. They got a bruise.
Yeah, I popped a blood vessel by accident. I didn't mean to, but I was pulling through, and I felt something right here in my arm, just like that, just as simple as that, and pulled through the trigger, and I looked down and I went,
I had a bruise.
The hell?
But I've never seen anything like that.
That was amazing.
I don't like the 357.
No, I'd sadly go with the Reichs revolver. I never thought I would say that.
I would definitely still own one.
Oh, for the hilarity of it, yes.
I was reading a review of one, and like the leading statement is like, you can lighten the trigger because they
already know.
Yeah, there's some surfaces that are there for safety, but you can grind them and lighten it up. But from the factory, it's not bad. And I'm like, wow, how much did you get paid to massage it this hard?
If the Army had adopted the 276 Pedersen before World War II, would it have been necessary to change the 223? Change to 223. What?
Nothing, keep going.
What are you saying?
Keep going.
In the 1960s, or could we theoretically still be using 276 Pedersen today?
No, it's still a rifle cartridge.
Yeah.
It's like a 7 mil-ish. What is it? 51? I can't remember now.
Off the top of my head.
It's still a full rifle cartridge. It's lighter than what we had.
Oh god, that scared me.
The comparison is 30-06, which is a monster. Fine, I get it, but if America convinced the rest of NATO to go with it, maybe they would have done it. But there's also the NATO angle. We didn't stick with 30-06. Like, we couldn't even keep them on that standard. We had to back down to NATO, and then the whole argument around NATO was wild, and then the whole argument about an intermediate cartridge to begin with was wild, and then we wandered away and did our own stupid thing. America was such a child about the NATO system at the beginning. And I'm sure there's also our reasons for why they were irritating us and we wanted to just listen to them. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of intersections that happen in the post-war ammo development phase that almost anything we selected would have ended up having to change no matter how good it was, because inevitably this fight would have kicked off. Like, I don't know. America didn't, and we ultimately didn't keep anything from the war now.
Let's see. If someone wrote CN Arsenal a check for $1 million.
Thank you.
Yes, I would. We get a lot done with that. Why is it whenever I'm like, oh, money, we can do work. And the only string attached was keep doing the show, but better. Oh, that's exactly what I was going for. How would you invest it into the future?
The number one thing that CN Arsenal would need with that kind of injection would be staff.
Yeah, we would immediately start shopping for staff at that point.
Yeah. And
because we have so many different show ideas that we've had to put on back burner because we just don't have the time and manpower.
I'm going to be honest, I would pay off my house. Which sounds selfish. However, we've put a lot of years into this and we keep re-upping the money.
A lot of the show into this too.
We keep re-upping the money. We keep re-upping everything. We've done the whole show and lived our lives in a 1,200 square foot house, and it's taken over everything. We've really stressed ourselves out to build the studio, which isn't done yet, but will at least give us some of our home back.
And will also basically allow us to do not just what we're doing in here, but more, because we have more space to set up more production.
Well, to be fair, I could relocate. If I paid off this place, then I would have the leverage to go further out of town and get a larger place. And then I would have the room to do the work better. And that would help a lot.
Right.
And,
2-car garage.
And to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't sell this place. I would probably leverage this place to buy the other place, like mortgage-wise.
2-car garage on cement. Do you know how many tools we would put in
And
there?
then I'd probably take this place
we put a mill in there.
back to pure residential. And then I would use it to house 2 or 3 people.
I'm not greedy. I don't need 3, but I think we can make over 2.
I would basically hire 2 or 3 people and let them live here while they got established in town, because that would let me pick from around the world. I could pick anybody I wanted.
Right.
So I know this sounds like an insane plan, but it's like this house doesn't have that much money left on it, but we bought it cheap. We also have been poor this whole time, so it's not... You guys would hate to know how little money is left on this thing. And yeah, we can't afford it. So if I paid this off, got a bigger place for me to set up camp and do my actual work and have room to spread out and do everything, then turned around and also got enough garage space to do all the loading
That's
and
what I
everything.
said. 2-car garage at least.
Then use this place to house employees, because the problem with Charleston is it's a realty nightmare. But we are set up here and we have what we need here. So I could bring people in and let them stay here for free while getting them spun up on how to do the business.
Yep.
If it doesn't work out, they can go home and they haven't spent a ton of money or signed a lease.
Right.
So that would let me go through some employees over about a course of maybe like a year or 2 and set up who's going to be good at this, because it's just kind of a hard fit.
Right.
Once that's done, though, once that momentum's there,
Because there's an integration part that does have to come with that.
right, we could start churning content and merchandise. I believe heavy enough to actually carry everybody without having completely consumed that $1 million. And then hopefully what that would do is it would establish enough people that if I get hit by a bus, CN Arsenal
will
keeps
continue
going.
on. Right, because that's the goal, is that ultimately this is something someone else could pick the reins up.
Right, and I'm not even looking for like a sales exit strategy. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
Like to be honest with you, if I retired from CN Arsenal and turned it over to somebody else, I think my exit strategy would be like, hey, look, while I'm alive, can I get like 5% on merchandising or something, just something to kind of keep my hand in that I created all this. I wouldn't be looking to lump sum it, because if you lump sum it, the next person's going to want to wring it like a sponge.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's going to be a mess. So the point would be to kind of make it a legacy brand at that point, and that would mean hiring people and getting in another researcher, a videographer.
And they'd be someone just as
Yeah.
dedicated as we are to this insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they would have the advantage of having their bills paid as a guarantee up front. They wouldn't have to do the juggle that we did.
That's true.
So,
There would be that.
but that would be the big thing. Like, I think right now there's enough stories and enough material around here that we could, if there were 2 of me, and especially 2 of you, God, we could just throw
Churn
them
and
at
burn. Oh my God, we get through so much.
we're really stuck with time. We can't buy time, so
High
we'd have to
five
buy
me
help.
on the way when one goes to sleep and the other goes to work. We would do off shifts. I know we would.
Whenever I talk about-
we get a meal together once a week probably.
Whenever I talk about this, people are always like, I want to come work, and I'm like, But
No,
you
you
don't
don't.
because you won't get paid. There's just
Not. I mean, if we had the $1 million, yes, you would get paid. But then right now, no. We have a
actually-
lot of temp work currently.
we
for
wouldn't be
people.
building the new studio if it wasn't for essentially a grant. Like somebody stepped up and helped
Yep.
out. To,
And then our neighbor massively helped with getting us
Labor.
set up with
Yeah.
a bunch of labor for it and stuff. So also the AC.
anyway,
That was nice.
yeah, we had
Very
we
much
can talk
helpful.
more about that in a minute. But
Yeah. But yeah, so that's what we
That's-
do. We would. I literally went, "Oh, we'll do more work," and he went, "You have to do work." That's what I do. Let's answer one more question, then we'll take a pause. What's your favorite, funniest example of engineering around material or human resource restrictions? Oh, that's a difficult one.
You know, we see a lot of those and they're not coming to mind very easily.
Bruno would do really well
I
with
do
this question.
love. I don't know. I laugh every time I see an FN 1022. We haven't covered it yet.
Yeah.
It's an FN 1910, but they want it longer, but they didn't want to spend the money to make a new slide cutting machine. So they. Are you okay?
Yeah, I had a weird cramp in my stomach for a second,
Oh, okay.
but I'm good.
They had a weird slide cutting machine that they didn't want to make a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just like, we'll just like make a lug in here and we'll screw on a extension. So it just goes this beautifully swept side. It's one of the most elegant handguns ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, there's just like a knob on the front. That's just the cap for the extended barrel. There, Yugoslavia, you happy? Yeah, we're happy.
didn't the
It
Swedes
looks
have-
like crap.
Swedes have to do that modification on their rifles because it was slightly too short, so they had to add a little extra nubbin at the end. The 94, is that what I'm thinking?
No, that
of?
was the importer though. That wasn't the.
Yeah,
that,
no,
that wasn't
never
them.
mind.
Also, that was garbage. The gun was long enough. There was the tank of air itself exists because they couldn't get it together on making the giant Maxim. So they're like, oh, but we really
need
need to,
something. It's
Yeah, we
just
gotta throw a
something,
big
yeah.
bullet at these things. Like, what are we doing? And they're like, oh, fine. So they just like bulk up.
Car.
I will say that the fact that the SKS exists because of actually not the SKS, but the PTRS is the one I think I'm thinking of. The anti-tank rifle from the World War II.
Yes.
We covered it as part of the SKS episode, but the fact that they're just like,
Scaled.
oh my god, we need anything that'll fight a tank, anything, and you're going,
What if we make it bigger?
well, we have this cavalry, we have this semi-automatic cavalry carbine, so we'll just flip this over and like make it bigger.
This is in control.
And then it worked, and you're like, holy crap! Of all the things that would work, that worked. That is actually a pretty good one too.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right,
camera?
let's take a pause of the camera. Yeah. What is everyone's favorite country of origins for milsurps? I like the Swiss. They're
Really?
so clean.
Name 3 Swiss gun.
Well, there's the G11,
Mm-hmm.
it's K11, and then there's the K31.
Okay, that's some cheap crap. Now handgun go.
Oh no. I don't really know.
What?
I don't know a lot of them. I'm trying to
What?
remember. Well, I'm forgetting something, obviously.
Oh
Luger,
yeah, like we've.
1900. More Swiss handguns.
She really loves Swiss.
Just the rifles.
You just like
I tend to
Schmidt
collect only the
rifles.
rifles,
You
yeah.
just like Schmidt rifles. That's all you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. What else have you got?
Don't sit there and scratch yourself. Answer
Scratching
the
my
question.
leg. I don't remember. I just told you. I got what
You
I
don't
got.
remember Swiss 1878
Oh,
or
the revolver.
1882?
No, not really.
Oh, okay.
Because, to be fair, I
What about
remember the 82 because that hurt my damn hands.
Sig
The
210?
78 at least was beautiful.
We haven't done the SIG 210, but they had the SIG 210.
No, I didn't do that one. I haven't touched it. I don't remember. Look, my life has been this for the last 10 years. It's pretty much been focusing on one rifle after the next. We've done a couple of handguns.
Man. So you
What
like that
about
more
you?
than all the British stuff? Well, it's all revolvers, so you don't like British
Yeah,
stuff.
no, that's fine.
don't
At
like
least
it
for
that.
America, they kind of went for a lot of.
Do you like American stuff?
Well, I mean, except for the whole revolver stint where they just went full revolver heavy. I used to love revolvers until I had to shoot a bunch of them, and then none of them worked well.
Well, you get 1911.
Yeah, the 1911. 1911 series
the
was
Smith
fun.
& Wesson
The 1902 was pretty rad. I like
Yeah.
the Colt 1902.
What? That was the worst revolver.
It was the funniest one, though. Not revolver, pistol.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was good.
What about Craig Jorgensen?
I mean, Krags are sweet,
What
but
about Springfield 1903?
why do you... I mean,
There's more variety.
there is more variety, yeah. So
you just
Springfield
pointed
1903s
out
are
one
pretty
rifle
nice,
you
yeah.
liked, and that was your whole thing. The
Yeah.
country where you're like, I like Swiss stuff. What do you like? That one thing they did.
Yeah, repeatedly. It made it better each time.
Yeah, I have autism.
All right, what do you got? Probably Japan for you.
No. Why?
Arisakos.
They're good
boo.
rifles. See, you're thinking like yourself, where it's just like, I'm going to name one good rifle.
Yeah.
Other than that, they had terrible handguns.
Type 26, double action only.
It's terrible.
It's great.
Terrible.
It's great. Double action only, it's all you need.
I don't want to do it anymore. Really, if you wanted like the most extensive collection you could get and just for having fun with it, weirdly, U.S. obviously. You get revolvers and semi-automatics. You get all sorts of rifles, semi-automatic rifles, bolt action, whatever, right?
Right.
But another good one, Belgium.
Well,
You don't think about it, but FN made some stuff. And then the Belgians also made a ton of revolvers for other people. So you have revolver there. You have Browning semi-automatics all up in it. You have clearly bolt-action rifles like the Mauser 89 and some of their exports. And then you have a bunch of breech loaders because they made tons of breech loader single shots and stuff.
sure.
And then if you get further on in the future, you get all sorts of cool semi-automatics. You get high power. You get FM49. You get all sorts of stuff.
Oh no, I finished my coffee.
You get foul. You can get foul.
Dang it, foul.
Belgium is actually underrated for collectability.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
Good question. Good answer.
Good quancher.
Shut up. I'm out of my coffee, so now I'm sad.
Good quancher.
Which is your favorite hand trap?
Go.
Can I count the gyro pigeon? Because it's a spinning blade of death that actually I look back at the footage and I go, ooh, maybe we shouldn't have fired that one off.
Screw the firearms. Can we just make a reproduction gyro pigeon? How many of you guys would buy like steel spinning? Yeah, I bet you could get the cost down to under like $200, and people would go
Well, that
nuts.
clock spring in there is going to be pretty hard to reproduce.
Now, once you had it made though, your unit cost, like once you get somebody to make you 10,000 of those,
Modern gyro pigeon. It's fun for the whole family.
we'd be out of business instantly and we'd
Kids
lose.
ages 11 and up.
The problem is, like, we'd sell a ton of them, and then within like a month, we'd be sued for like wrongful eye lacerations.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, that is a product
You
no
should
one
have worn
would.
goggles when shooting that thing. and full body armor.
Just safety
I'm
squints.
just looking at it going, oh, that was a bad one to shoot off. Whoopsie doodle.
My favorite that I own just to have on the wall is probably like the Blanton, the big wood.
The Blanton's pretty fun.
Everybody's
yeah.
like, is that a submachine gun? I'm like, that's a clay thrower.
A number of people that I've walked into our house and go, is that a gun? No, that's a clay thrower. I'm sorry, it's a what?
There's been at least one contractor that came in and looked at the wall and went, those are not guns. And I went, yes. And he's
It's
going,
like, correct.
are they gun related? And I was just like, well, they're for throwing clays for shotgun shooting. And he's just like, okay, that's sick. Like, but he was trying to figure it out.
Just like one of those ones where he's just staring at the wall going, I know something here.
To actually use, like if I just had to take one out and use it, if you have someone that can't throw for crap, it's the Remington auto traps, the little handheld ones with the spring on it that walk over.
With that spring in the center. Those
And
are pretty easy.
If you have someone that's capable of throwing for crap, it's kind of a tie. It would either be
Sure throw?
Yeah, the Sure Throw, the wood ones.
pretty good one,
I don't know if
yeah.
you can still get those, but they were the guys that made them. When you know how to throw with those are great as a compact
you
one.
can huck them far with those.
But realistically, the MTM case guard Red Boys, just the ones you find everywhere, they have one that comes on a pole.
Yeah, the long one.
And that one takes some skill to use properly. But if you know how to use it, oh my God. Also, if anybody finds one of those in like a yard sale or something, and the pole is even longer than the normal one, I have to look up how much length.
Contact him.
Let me know. There was an MR and there was in the first year like an LR. And somewhere I've got an email where they told me the difference.
You contacted the company and went, hey, and then what was it, the Sun?
Does anybody work for
Contacted you?
Briley, by the way? The choke tubes? If you do, send me an email because there's a guy there that I've been poking and he has data that I want on something.
Okay.
Anyway,
Relations
it's
here?
about hand traps.
Okay.
They can do their own homework.
Okay.
What was I saying? Oh,
Sure.
but the
the
stick
stick
thrower.
thrower.
There was supposedly a long one. I've kind of kept my eye out, and I've never been able to discern one that was longer than the other ones. But it would be kind of fun to have both the medium and the long.
Right, because that one's called, the other one's called the mid-range or something like that.
It's
And you
like
go, well, wait
it's
a minute,
the MR.
what's the long
If you ever
one?
look, it's the easy throw MR, and I was like, why is it the MR? And he's like, oh, it's medium range. I'm like, there are other ranges. He's like, yeah, there's a long range one. I'm like,
There's a long
and sure
one?
enough, it was in their he sent me a copy of their catalog because MTM Case Guard, they're really cool guys. And I looked at it and went, I want the long one. And I had to go look at the catalog again to see what the difference was.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's
That'd be
just,
interesting.
I want the thing longer.
Yeah, that's fair. What's something that surprises or confuses you about your audience, digital or in person? I get confused when they're excited to see me weirdly
Are
because
you itchy?
I don't know why my back was itchy for a second. Okay. Stop shaming me for my itch. I get a little wigged out whenever people are excited to meet me because I feel like on camera, admittedly, yes, I do a lot behind the scenes, but on camera, you can't really tell a lot of what I do other than just shooting and talking about some general ergonomics and use of the piece at the end of the episode. But a lot of my back end stuff really isn't known a lot or seen a lot. You do the meat and potatoes.
I'm not that surprised by our audience. You guys tend to be, when I tend to run into you, tend to be exactly what I expect. Because you're like me. Because I created this because this is what I want to know. Mm-hmm. I actually fully understand the sort of parasocial stuff that can happen, although I do find it off-putting to a degree because I'm like, well, I'm just making a show. I'm a human being who has, some shits are better than others. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm not special. I'm just the guy that's collating the data right now.
You just hope you shit normal.
The one thing that's surprised me overall about having an audience, it's not really about you guys. It's actually something I want to talk about more in the podcast.
Okay.
Is there's this thing that happens that I finally put a finger on.
We figured that out today.
Is secondary celebrity, I guess is what I would call it.
I don't like that.
I'll run into one of you guys, and you have a moment to be hanging out with me and talk to me, and I'll talk to you about whatever you want. Like, I'm very friendly about it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a special thing for you, but some people think it is. They get excited. I'm surprised you guys are excited just like May is.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening every time is most people don't wander around alone in public. They usually are with a parent or friend or somebody. And what's always surprising to me is they'll say, "Oh my God, this is Othais." And then I go, "Hi, I'm Othais." And they're like, "Yeah, blah, blah." And instead of talking to me, they turn to the other person.
And like, this is the person
and they go,
of that thing.
He's the guy from the thing. And they go, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, yeah, the thing I watched. And it's just like, have you ever, or the bigger one is like, you've seen Seeing Arsenal, right? And they're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, you're really into guns. Yeah. You like old guns, don't you? I mean, I guess I do. Well, I'm trying to leave. Like, not like I'm mad or anything, but I'm just like, I'm clearly doing something. And you get caught in this whirlpool of
them trying to.
It's also deeply embarrassing because I'm not trying to be a celebrity.
No.
Okay, so here's the thing. This guy's recognized me, okay? If I'm selfish, it's like, aha, I'm very important, right? But he immediately turns to somebody else and he goes, do you know who this guy is? And like, no, who the hell is that guy? I've never heard of it.
Now my hands are on my hips for no reason.
I'm not very proud. But luckily my mind's not that way.
The
second guy is what I expect from every other human being. It's like, I don't know who that is. Like, that's what I'm used to. But this is weird, awkward moment.
You're a normal dude at the gun show?
I'm being overpraised.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what to do with all the time. And then some guy starts trying to sell my show to somebody who does not want to watch my show.
Not even a little bit.
Like, he's like, no, you gotta watch it. It's like, and I look over and I'm like, each episode is like an hour and a half long, and they go, "That's bullshit. I'm not doing it." And then the guy's like, "No, but it's really good."
You're the one who goes
I always tell him like, "Don't watch it."
It's like, you're not excited about just this conversation. You're not going to be able to do the show, bro.
So now it's whoever's trying to talk me up versus me and the other guy being like, it's really. And then they go, and the worst I always hate this is I get called a YouTuber.
Oh no, yeah.
And I get it. We're on YouTube and we do all the YouTube things. So that's fine. It's just the problem is when you hear in a vacuum, you hear YouTuber, you think clickbait, you think the big
TikTok tickle.
No, you're thinking the big smile and the hee-haw or stuff blowing up or
yeah.
And it's just like, it's hard because it's really more of it's PBS, but they won't let us on PBS, you know? So we don't really fit. So then when you say YouTuber to them and they're just like, they go, oh, are you like famous? And then any number under 2 million means nothing to them.
Oh, yeah, no.
So then it's just like, and the guys will be like, dude, they got like 500,000 subs. I'm like, well, there's Minecraft YouTubers that have more than that.
Yeah.
So they don't care.
You could be Minecrafting right now.
This is poor, like I'm watching this poor desperate. So you watch someone more and more desperately try to tell someone that you're important and the other person is calmly telling them that you're unimportant. And you agree with the person that's telling you that you're unimportant, but now it's also getting a little insulting.
Yep.
And that's the good scenario. The bad scenario is when the other person they've never seen the show, they don't understand it, but they latch on because there's some sort of celebrity here and they start like some combination of making suggestions that have nothing to do with the show because they've never seen it. So they're making YouTube assumptions. So they just start saying things like, you should wear a bikini, or like, how many things do you blow up,
so
or
bad for
how many
that
golf
one
balls do you
kid.
fit in your anus, or whatever the hell it is that they talk about.
I feel
Like,
bad for that one kid who was so excited to tell his dad about the show, and I was
One kid,
standing
it's
right
been like
there.
3.
And the kid turns to his dad and is talking, and his dad's like, "Oh, do you wear a bikini?" No, I don't.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to go now.
Felt so bad for that kid. That kid went white.
But that's one version of it where they're trying to explain it. A third person projects onto... So their YouTube tastes are not the same as their friend's YouTube taste, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they project what they think of as a YouTuber onto me. And then I'm like, that's not me.
No.
And then even weirder, and this is more rare, is the person who's never seen the show will latch on. I have had to abandon restaurants I rather liked because of that. Because then you have half the staff knowing that you're famous because someone told them,
Yeah.
but not one of them has watched 5 minutes of what you do.
Or want to.
So they just come at you with these ridiculous like assumptions and
I'm having to
questions.
take a break from one of them right now. That just happened like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I know.
feel so
I just get
sad.
run out of places that I wanted to go.
I miss it.
But it's so
the
awkward
food's not
'cause
that great, but I just miss the place.
They feel attracted to you because there's some sense of celebrity, but they don't know what you do.
We're not celebrities.
So then it just gets awkward because there's this person like right there, and you're going, I'm really not important. I just want a pancake. Like,
We can't go back.
please stop trying to develop an abnormal relationship with me. I just liked it before.
Okay, so that surprises and confuses.
Yeah, sorry.
That's a big surprise, confused. That one, that's an emotional one for us right now.
Anyway,
We're still trying to
if you
sort
run
it
into us and you're very happy to see us, don't convince your friend. Just be happy to see us. And if they don't understand who we are, that's his problem.
out. Yeah,
Don't worry about
really
it.
is.
Don't worry about him. Just say hi to me. We'll talk for 5 minutes. It'll be great.
a high five. Favorite modern or not so modern gun that you guys have picked up over the past year?
What'd you get?
Well, it wasn't so much as a pickup as a
Forced gift.
forced gift / undetermined amount of time, indefinite.
That's the first time I've
donation
ever
to the
seen
show.
you not. So people offer us stuff, and we tend to be like, "No, let me
Very
pay you."
humble.
Like,
I don't. Yeah, we don't. It's hard. It's hard to take things.
the show is expensive and time consuming, and we're underpaid, and we probably should just take things for free, but we still have that courtesy thing.
I don't
where
know
we're
why
like,
it makes me sad.
And this person tried to give me something else, and I ended up paying him half of its value because I was like, "Let me at least pay you for half the value."
It was all he would take.
Yeah. But anyway, what we can say here, I don't think he cares. It's Jeff.
Yeah. Well, no, I was gonna say Jeff.
Jeff
Yeah,
too.
it was Jeff.
Yeah,
Jeff
so
too.
he, who I love, but he's like trying to give us things,
Right.
and he pulls out a Verndl pistol. And May goes, I'm taking that. Like, there is no
hesitation.
There's the only
I
time in
couldn't
our
hesitate.
entire life I've never seen you take anything for free like this.
It's because
Like,
it makes my skin on fire. I don't know why, but for some reason, I saw that and I went, we have to have that. Goodbye.
But he's like, I'm taking that. I was just
He
like,
goes,
I mean, we could borrow it for the
There you
show, and
go.
she's like, I own this now. Like, she would not let it. I don't know. And to be fair, he knew that you'd like. Like, that's the weirder thing.
Yeah,
He's like,
he
I bet
knew.
May would like this, and I don't know how he
Pulled it out
vibed
and
it.
handed me. I went, I do. Thank you. I don't know what happened. I just suddenly had it, and I went, oh, I guess we have this now.
Yeah, May's liked other guns, and inevitably forgets she likes them 6 months later. I'll be like, you said you liked it,
Still
and she's
think
like,
about
I
the
don't
Verndl.
remember.
I want to shoot the Verndl pistol.
I know. We'll make a cartridge
Yay!
for it. But yeah, the Verndl pistol, May was like, ha 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 ha.
It's gonna be so dumb. I can't wait, and it works.
We have a Verndl rifle with a broken mainspring here that I need to fix.
Yes.
The guys, Lodgewood said that they could work on it, and I never sent it to them, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's your fault.
So everybody tell Lodgewood I'm sorry.
and
But I
that
like them.
he loves them.
Yeah, I do like them.
But yes, that was mine. That was my favorite this year. What about
Probably
you?
the entire year. Mm-hmm. I have to look at my notes. I picked up by the past year.
You wrote yourself a note right there. I'm
I
staring
did.
at
So
your
the
note.
one, well, that's because it's the most immediate. I made a note in case I got bogged down, but I'm trying to think of a whole year because stuff has come and gone, and I'm worried that I'm going to see.
You were going to say a loner that accidentally was just...
No, it's not even that. It's like I can't. I'm trying to remember a whole year's worth of stuff, and we're kind of piling some stuff up that's secret. Mm-hmm. Because again, I have an idea, like I always do. But I will say, the past I guess 2. I don't know. Is that in shot? Can you see that? Yeah, you guys can see that.
Yeah.
We have a legit Lee Enfield cavalry carbine.
Oh, okay.
That one came in destroyed. The barrel had been spun off. The receiver had been twisted. It was an utter mess.
Oh, but right now, it does not look like an utter mess.
No.
Why is that, Matthias?
Because our buddy Brandon, who we're not allowed to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about him, but we're putting him in the middle of this, so now he's got to watch the whole thing.
Brandon managed to get it straightened out well enough that we can use it. It is shootable now and in spec. So at some point we will actually do Lee Enfield.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon.
Original
That's
carbine.
very sweet of you.
And a lot of you know how rare that is. So that was exciting because I can't afford one normally. And then I'm trying to tit for tat Brandon a bit more, but I think I'm on the downside. I got to owe him some more stuff.
You are on the downside.
Yeah, I know.
He has your father's car.
That's a whole other.
Yeah.
It's a whole other thing. But more recently, I don't even have it. I thought I almost instinctively looked over because I'm playing with it. Like impulse buy because
less than a minute.
Impulse buy because it was affordable. I grabbed a Gen 1 686. And I went to the gun store. And then we'll let the camera cool down and I'll tell the story.
Okay.
So it's 357.
Okay.
And I take it to the gun store.
Yeah.
And I bought it from the gun store and I clean it up and I come back and the timing's fine. It's not perfect, but it's fine. And better than any of the military stuff we have to deal with.
Just checking the mics.
357. Just grab a box of range ammo essentially, which turned out to be Priv, and start shooting it. And it's like, there's more layers to this, but just to give you a snapshot of it, 6 shots, 8 holes, 2 of which are clearly sideways bullets.
It's like,
and I'm going,
that's not normal.
I know this timing is not this bad. What the hell? And I've got it's like clearly shaving, hitting, like I'm feeling it sprinkling me, like, what is going on?
That's just dust.
So I strip it. I get a new hand in. I get a new stop in. I had to send the stop back. Actually, thank you Midway for nothing on that one. The stop is supposed to have a linear hole like this, you know?
Yeah.
And instead it was just a big old hole. So it just wandered and it would snag up. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. And I went back and looked at the site and the picture they had on the site, it did have the linear hole. So they just sent me junk. So I had to send it back. But then I had to make a box this big to put their return thing on for a part that small. It felt absolutely ludicrous the whole time.
It is ludicrous.
But with just the hand, I was able to get it timed up well enough that I was like, okay, there's no way this is a timing issue. We're fine.
Right.
So I go back and it's like 6 shots, 7 holes or whatever. You know, there's more BS. And I'm like, is it certain chambers or something? So I play with it until I run out of Priv ammo. And then I'm going, this is the... So what happens if I shoot 38 special out of it? So I went and got range ammo 38 special. Shot fine, like a laser beam, perfectly nice holes. And as a matter of fact, by this point I've been fighting it so hard, I'm grouping like that at 36 feet. Like it's just unbelievably good.
You just butthole symboled them.
Yeah, butthole. So, I go back to the counter. And at this point I'm going, I'm not at the counter. At this point I'm going, do you see ammo? Because I had some 357 critical defense laying around. I was like, I'm sticking that in there. 6 perfectly straight holes. So I'm going, it must have been the Priv just throwing jackets. And
Weird.
Right, so I go grab terrible arms core that's throwing smoke everywhere. It's nasty ammo. 357, right? Perfectly straight holes.
What the hell, Priv?
And beautiful groups. And I'm just going,
that's weird.
Okay, Priv, thanks for nothing. Like, I don't know what was wrong with that batch of Priv, because I was talking to another guy at the range.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I use Priv all the time in mine. And I went,
are
you losing jackets? He's like, no, there's perfectly good holes. And I went, I got but I went through so much because I'm stupid. And I went, well, it's got to be because in our world, it's always the stupid gun. No, it was the ammo this time.
Yeah.
So I've been playing with the 686 a lot. Well, a lot for me, which means like 5 hours total. But I guess I've just been thinking about it a lot.
Yeah, I can tell.
Get the big Pagmeyer grips. It's like an 80s cop. Anyway.
All right, next question. Please give an Matthias rant about which pre-Great War Ordnance Department infuriates you the most.
Easily the U.S.
Really? Because I feel like... Oh, wait. Pre-Great War.
Yeah.
Okay, never
Easily
mind.
the U.S. Ordnance Department.
Yeah, it's fair.
Easily.
I was going to say United Kingdom because of the whole Webley stuff, but then that's pre-Great War.
No, the French were asinine too. But the French had an excuse. Like, all the asinine stuff that you see in the European world makes sense to a certain degree. Because they have these standing armies that are big, so any change they make ripples through. The British are the perfect example of what happens when you go ahead and make those changes. They spent so much money and time Like, we're going to make a
Oh
little
my
change.
God.
We're going to make a little change. We're going to make a little change. And every time they
Well,
did...
that's why they were infuriating me, because it took forever for shit to happen.
Well, no, it's just that they kept upping it little bits at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, instead of just... Okay, there's a lot of problems with French guns. There's a lot of problems with Austrian guns. What do? Sit on it until it's too late to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out they weren't that big of a deal in the actual war. Okay?
Right.
Whereas with the British, they min-maxed the crap out of the Lee Enfield, and sure, people really like it. But I think what they really like about it was just magazine capacity and the length. Well, the U.S. also got to the same length. We just didn't get to the same magazine capacity. But really, the action, some people like it, some people don't like it. It's got its own problems, ups and downs. But realistically, if it never existed as that action, you wouldn't care either way.
Right.
But the problem is they get there by being like chop, 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 and just disseminating changes like crazy, which becomes a nightmare for logistics and everything else. But they're a very big, wealthy empire, and they managed to afford it, and with a fairly small volunteer army, so yeah, they can get it done. Okay. Then you have the French, who have just weird decisions. They have the most advanced weaponry in the world, but they won't make it, so they make this garbage instead. It's like, I don't understand it. So we can rant about that, fine. But pre-entry into the Great War, unless we're talking about pre-1914, then maybe there's an argument.
I think, well, he said pre-Great War, so that's what I'm thinking.
Yes, but what if it's their entry? Because the problem is you have the Italians who don't get ready nearly well enough before they enter, fine. But the U.S. is the worst. The U.S. has no excuse. All the manufacturing ability, all the technology ability, all the financial ability, everything they need to get this under control. And yes, they are hampered by not quite getting the check in time. But even if you don't have the check in time, I still think Crozier sat on the hands too much. I think Crozier and them should have been saying, there's no way around this. We need to piggyback some of these foreign contracts. We need to build up our arsenal now. And they should have fought for that money harder. And even if they didn't, they should have had their inroads and plans made, and they should have had their guys spread out wherever they could as inexpensively as possible to be ready to flex, because this was inevitably coming.
Right.
And they didn't. They waited until the check came through, then they went, uh-oh. And then they piddled around for a minute, and then they finally got everything moving. And then the whole time they're going, crap, 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 there's not enough of us. We don't... Blah, blah, blah.
How do you really feel about this?
It's just the U.S. saw it coming from further away than anybody else and still fudged it. And yeah, we finally got everything ready in time for 1990. Oh, wait, it ended. Like, it was really... And then, boom, economic collapse from that bullshit. Like, you cannot underestimate how much a self-inflicted gunshot wound the U.S. took by running these infinite contracts too late to be of any good use, but just in time to overflex capital in the commercial market and have the government turn around and be like, and done. And then all the private businesses go, what the hell's happening? Boom! Because the government just goes, well, I mean, we'll trickle it off. We'll give you an eighth of the contract total or whatever the investment was going to be. And just massive economic collapse from it. But thankfully, at that time, they did the things they needed to do, which was they bumped up interest rates and fired all the government employees, and then it's a whole thing. But like...
Recovery on it was better
it was
as a
bad.
result of it.
It was a year of hell, but everybody forgets that because we think of the Roaring 20s, because we don't think about 1919. But the U.S. ordnance and government working together played a major prank on U.S. arms industry, which was too late and then overblown and then popped the bottom. It was bad.
Fair point. Next question. There was a lot of talk about guns in this show, but guns aside, what are your favorite targets to shoot at? I mean, I like reactive targets.
You like clays?
Yeah, clays are fun. Oh, I liked it when we had the Firebirds on it, and they really went...
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun.
I like those.
Yeah, that's pretty
They're
fun.
kind of, I can't afford that all the time, but I
No.
like it. I have a pack of them right there. I just haven't really used them.
Yeah.
I like, I don't know, I think I'm just plain. I like IPSC steel
Yeah,
because I know how big it is.
that's fair.
Like, I don't know how to explain it, but since IPSC steel is always that size and we're so used to it, then I can just sit there and be like, oh, is that like 300 yards? Yeah, okay.
Okay,
And
that's
I know,
fair.
just from the size
Just
of
from
the
the
plate, I
size,
know
you
where my
can
hole is.
tell how far out it is. You can go, okay,
and
I'm
it's
pretty
probably
sure
just-
that's that range.
I'm biased because my familiarity with it, because that's what David has on his range, but and
I get it.
then I can hear it. And just boom, plong.
Pwong.
Yeah.
Sorry, camera cut out for a second there. What is the minimum number of acres required by state law to shoot on your own property?
This is in South Carolina or in general?
Well, South Carolina, I know, because this gentleman, he says basically he's moving to the South, and he was looking to buy land but didn't know what
Where's
the
he
laws
moving
were.
from? Where are you moving from?
He didn't clarify.
Where are you moving
I don't really
from?
want to clarify anymore.
Where are you moving from? Where are you moving from?
Regardless,
Where are you moving from?
it depends on the state.
Are you aware?
Depends on the state.
We went to buy some stuff for the studio from a very nice gentleman who was from New Jersey.
Okay.
And he's lived here for like 18 years. And he still doesn't understand.
Okay.
Like, he was
not.
very nice.
Yeah.
But we were having a conversation, and he said, you know, when I first got here, I was clearly the Yankee. I don't know if this guy is or not. I don't
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I just, when I hear moving to the South.
I know.
Yeah. So, we're having a conversation. He's a perfectly nice man. I have nothing against him. It is hard to express how there is a difference, an almost imperceptible vibration of conversation, priority, courtesy, whatever. But you could tell. You're like, Northerner, right? And he was explaining to me how it used to be that he kind of had a hard time with it and got teased here and there, or he would inadvertently offend somebody.
Right.
But it recently hasn't been so bad. And I said, well, that's because there's almost no native Southerners in this county. Like this, Charleston County is gone.
Right.
You'd be lucky to find a Southerner 1 in 5, you know? And I said, I looked at him and I went, well, you've interacted with people for what, the past 2 weeks. Can you think of most of them? He was like, I guess so. And I went, how many of them are born and raised in the South? And he went, oh, I guess none. And I went,
Yeah,
right,
that's
that's why you stopped feeling the friction, because now all of you are not from here.
Right.
And then he goes, oh, yeah, boy, I guess we really won that one. And he's looking right at me, who's a Southerner, who's having this conversation with. And I looked at him and I went, that might be the friction you felt. Like, just that moment. And
Right.
he's just like, oh, yeah. And I went, yeah, we were financially erased from our own region and had to be pushed to the margins. Everybody thinks you improve the South, but it's gentrification. We only think of it in racial terms, but it moves everyone that doesn't keep up with it. And so the South has been run out of their own cities for the most part, and that's why there might be a cultural divide there. And there is a distinct cultural it's weird because I was trying to explain to him, I was like, you go to Japan and nobody gets weirded out by this. They're like, oh yeah, the Japanese have this like they know their culture, and then there's these degrees of association and how associated you are. I'm like, Southerners also do this, not to that degree, but there is a degree of association.
But to be fair, the reason we ended up getting the property that we got for the deal that we got it for was because I was specifically not just a Southerner, but South Carolinian.
Small town South Carolinian.
Small town South Carolinian. And he went, we're selling it to you.
Yeah, because he was getting irritated by the same phenomenon.
I was getting it for his price, which was a much better option.
Because he came from a little town that basically doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Like, it just completely gentrified out of his existence. So it's one of those things where, like, I understand that you guys think it's funny that we have this friction, but there's also, you have to understand that the world you grew up in just vanishes by people who mock you for it vanishing and just being like, yeah, sorry, I want to come here too. And so I do get heat for being like the Southern guy that kind of defends the Southern personality. But it is, I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying you must recognize that there's a cultural displacement happening. And especially for someone like me, where I don't have a strong Southern accent, just a mild one, a lot of that's that I grew up being told don't sound Southern. Same here. Like we both actually grew up in households where it's like, nope, they won't hire you if you sound Southern. You'll limit your job options. TV says you're all stupid. So a lot of us were sort of whitewashed in our own way, I guess Yankee washed. But we were told to hide our cultural heritage in order to get along with a macro culture that then just came in and wiped out everything that we valued around us. Right. And then argues with us about prices and doesn't know how to, and anyway, it's the whole thing. So, sorry, I just wanted to explain that detail on this thing.
But I think specifically South Carolina is somewhere between 24, 27 for the acreage.
I never even looked it up.
Yeah, it's somewhere around that. We did not look it up.
We just talked to the neighbors. That's the way to go.
It's kind of more of just if you're from here, it's a casual conversation. If you're not from here, you probably should know the acreage.
Be careful how you ask that question if you're not from here. Don't just come in and be like, "Does anybody shoot around here?" Like they're gonna
instantly
clam
not
up
make
on you
friends.
fast.
Although, yeah, there's only so much training you can have without being.
There's a subtlety
Southern.
in how we speak.
Yeah, I will say that.
It doesn't seem
We'll
like
do
it.
one more question, and then we'll probably take a pause of the cameras.
Okay.
What's your guys' preferred method for concealed carry?
On my hip.
This person's asking because they're in a hot, humid climate.
On my hip with sweat.
Yep. The sweat eventually builds and causes friction if
Yeah.
it gets sticky enough.
I'm just strong side.
Yeah. Your sweat becomes sticky eventually. It becomes
it.
less moist and slick and more sticky.
I will say I do like a higher rise holster because of that. Because if it gets down in the fabric, it just ties up. So
Hip is still best.
yeah, having a good. I mean,
Quick, easy access.
I actually tend to use leather holsters.
Not just for personal protection against other people, but also animals here.
I may have to draw on a dog.
I did. I had to draw on a dog. That
That's
sucked.
in the podcast.
Yeah. I luckily didn't have to end up shooting the dog, but I would have if I had to.
Yeah,
Luckily, I
was-
escaped.
narrow.
We got pretty close there. Look, it's either that or it takes a chunk out of me, and I'm not going to do that. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's take a pause for the cameras.
Okay.
All right, what's your favorite EDC CCW setup?
Oh, same thing. I just on my hip.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
You're a woman. Do you like to carry off body?
The problem comes with outfits. We sometimes end up limited
Forced, yeah.
by what we can do. It's not my favorite, but the option I've made sure I have availability to always have something with me, no matter what.
Right.
That's the thing, is that no matter what, I'll have some protection. Don't worry.
Your one advantage is that if you eat too much food, you can always ditch the purse.
That's true.
I have to
could.
live with the consequences of my actions.
Yes, you do.
Immediately.
Well, see, you could just wear a bigger belt, and then you could just loosen as you go.
I will say less so with EDC that it matters because I carry the weight on my belt. Mm-hmm. I've switched over to suspenders. I think I've told this to people before, but I tend to wear like a light t-shirt. I'm never really just in a t-shirt anyway. I tend to be a guy that wears a shirt at least.
Yep.
So I tend to just throw on a t-shirt, like lightweight, throw on a pair of, technically I've been using the VTAC suspenders of all things because I had them for some body armor. And then I realized they were the thinnest. And instead of being like, people think of suspenders and they think of those clip-on things
Yeah.
that go from front to back.
And those are not.
And I've always hated those. What got me thinking about this was actually a 1911 shoulder holster rig that clipped to my belt.
Which was really
And
nice.
I wore it for a day and I went, oh my God, because I could just loosen my belt. There was not all this pressure around my abdomen. If I added more weight to my belt line or my pockets, it all carried through the shoulders. And then
And for dudes, that's really good carry.
that system had some problems because it was rigid and leather. But the VTACs, which you can go get, and I'm not paid by them, they have elastic loops. I wish they would make some more versions of this, maybe out of softer material for everyday
You
wear.
should probably make sure you snag some extras at some point.
Well, I have a couple. I have like 3 pair now. Although I loaned one out to a friend of mine to try out because we were talking about this.
Sure. Who'd you loan out to?
Brian.
Oh, okay. Hi, Brian.
Anyway, they have this elastic at the end, almost like a hair scrunchie. And that is just enough that when you sit or stand or whatever, especially being a bigger dude, I never have to fix my pants. I don't have to relocate my gun or reorient or fiddle. If I take off at a dead run from a standstill, everything's coming with me. It's all moving with me.
Okay.
Ladies, guys don't always have hips. They don't always have a butt. I don't have
Oh,
much
yeah,
of a
no,
butt.
I've
I got
noticed
Hank
that.
Hill ass.
I've worn men pants before. Y'all don't have hips.
Yeah, so the belt is really not, and to be honest with you, the belt wasn't normal for men until very recently. Suspenders were normal. As a matter of fact, you'd have buttons on the pants for them, and then it would link up properly. These clip-on suspenders suck.
Oh, yeah.
But also, going back to my point, suspenders coming across the front, when you move, they get in the, the ones that come down the side up under your armpits. Oh my God. It's so much.
Night and day difference.
Try it out, guys. I mean, I think they're like $40-$50 for a pair of these things. Just go try them out. You don't have to wear them every day. Next time you go out to do any work in the yard, or if you have land like we do and you have to go out and like work on the tractor or something, or get up under your car, just try it out because you'd be amazed. It's almost like wearing coveralls that stay with you everywhere, but none of that heat and craziness.
Right.
The one thing I will say is be prepared to get some dry skin over the shoulders at first because it's holding your cloth to you all the time.
Sure.
But
Yeah, you're not wearing it direct on skin. You're wearing a shirt and then it over it.
yeah, it still creates a little bit of almost like a rashing at first when you're not used to it. But
Sure.
but a little bit of lotion and like some patience and that goes away. Just like
If you're afraid of getting lotion on your hands,
if you
that's why
wander
you have
around-
a friend put it on for
if you
you.
wandered around naked your whole life and started wearing clothes one day, you'd start like you wouldn't be used to it.
Yeah. I gotcha. All right, let's see. Do you have or know where I can find... Oh, do you have or know where one can find pictures of the fully automatic Lugers and C-96 guns tested by Germans in World War I before they settled on the more novel MP-18?
Not off the top of my head.
No, we didn't find them for the episode either.
Yeah, if I don't have them in the episode, I probably didn't see them. To be honest with you, I don't know that there's necessarily drawings preserved of that, because all they would have done is fairly simple modifications that would have told them, oh my god, the fire rate's utterly insane. I don't know if any of those made it as far as troop trials or not, to be honest with you. I haven't dug into it that hard.
I haven't either, no.
No, I don't know off the top of my head, no.
Sorry about that. Hopefully we can find some someday to use in an episode.
If anybody has them, send them to me, and then I'll tell this guy.
Yeah. What guns are you most excited about for the interwar World War II? At some point, I'll have to take a pause so I can let the dog out.
Yeah, the dog has to pee.
Apparently. She's stomping at the end of the gate.
What are you excited about? Interwar World War II.
You know what? It's going to kind of sound sad, but I'm kind of excited to cover some of the more popular pieces because those are the most cried for.
Works
Same deal.
Yeah.
And yet they don't do as well as people think they do. So I'm kind of excited to cover the Garand, to get the M1 carbine out of the way, just to kind of get them done.
There's some light machine guns in the interwar period that are pretty interesting that I don't know if I'm going to be able to lay hands on, but I'd love to. There's certainly a lot of semi-automatic rifle development because we really haven't touched much on that.
That would be fun.
We've vaguely covered the very beginnings of semi-automatic rifle, but being able to get into the meat of actually producing semi-automatic rifles.
There's some anti-tank rifles in World War II that'll be fun.
Oh, yeah.
I'll
I
look
can actually
forward to
cover some
that.
anti-tank rifles. I love those.
We are actually going to be covering those. That's the thing we will touch. Now, we may not touch things like, I don't know, stationary weapons.
We're not doing artillery or
No.
anything like that. But ordnance is out of our range, but just some rifles. Now, I will say in the U.S., anything over 50 is like ooh boo boo, except for I think there's an exclusion for 55 boys. But essentially, I don't care. 55 boys is fine to me. That's still small arms, technically. And same with any of the other like personal anti-tank rifles. Like, don't worry that I'm gonna fret it over a millimeter or two.
Yep.
But no, we're not gonna do like small cannons.
No.
That's not really our thing. We don't do artillery. But yeah,
cannons are fun.
Anti-tank rifles will be fun. Sort of the birth of the modern handguns and the modern semi-automatic rifles will be fun. Realistically, there's like going to be a lot of nuanced bolt action still, which is going to upset everybody. But I don't care. I'm telling the stories because there's still interest in there.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else that's more remarkable. Yeah. All right. We're gonna let the dog pee.
Oh, you want me to do that?
Yeah,
All right,
go
let's
ahead.
go do that. All right, next question. What has been the gun that you found the most fun to shoot for the show? For me, I enjoyed those Verndl rifles a lot. The Tabernacle was fun to click, clack, back and forth. That was a lot of fun. For pistol, though, probably the Lancaster. That was pretty fun, the 4-shot.
T-Gewehr.
T-Gewehr was entertaining.
We don't have
Big
any other
boom.
footage of you going,
Big boom.
"Wah!"
That's true. Okay, fine, whatever. Probably T-Gewehr. You're probably still right.
T-Gewehr. That's it.
That's it? Answer question. Done.
Big gun go boom.
Big gumbo. Yeah. All right. Of all the breech loading conversions, what's the one that you're more interested about, eager to cover in a primer episode?
Breech loading conversions?
Yeah.
We do have someone that's going to loan us like all the trapdoors. So
Assuming that when we get around to it, they're still willing.
that requires driving, and right now we're trying to do the studio thing. So
Not of this year, then.
maybe this year. I don't know. We'll see. And then we've got everybody wants to see the Snyder. I'm sure
Yeah.
all the Anglophiles love that.
It's true.
So
Yeah.
there's some other cool ones.
Yeah.
I'd like to shoot a Roberts. That'd be fun.
That'd be interesting. Of all the breech loading conversion rifles you've seen, what's your favorite? I can't
Rolling
honestly
block.
pick a favorite.
Does that count as a conversion though? I feel like that's pretty far for conversion. You get to reuse the barrel. That's about it.
Yeah. I don't really have a favorite. I haven't really gotten into it yet, so I'm not really my era. Fortunately.
I don't like the Snyder very much.
Yeah. Oh, I have shot a Snyder before, but I didn't care for it. It's very difficult for service, it seemed.
No, it's fine. It's just not my favorite. I mean, I like trapdoors, but I feel like I haven't shot enough breech loader conversions, though.
Not really, yeah.
I've only shot a handful. I'm also struggling to think of ones that are like actual conversions, because there's always the guns that are like, it's a conversion, and then no one did that.
Right.
I still do kind of like. So far, the trapdoor is probably the most pleasant,
Yeah.
but that would probably change. I'm really curious about the Belgian ones.
Yeah.
There's a couple of trapdoor like Belgians. There's the Berdan one. I don't know. I just haven't shot a lot of them. Now that I think about it, I mean, really, how many single shot conversions have we shot? I think we've shot more cartridge conversions of smokeless.
Yeah. Cartridge conversions. That's what we've done a lot of by comparison. Have either of you had an opportunity to visit Cody Firearms Museum?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
We went one time.
One time. Just once.
And I'm gonna kill Danny.
There's a podcast on that.
He's a very good friend of mine.
Gotta kill him.
I'm gonna kill him.
Gotta kill him. Have you ever considered going to or collaborating with the John Browning Museum in Ogden? We technically did a little tiny collaboration with them.
Yeah, we answered a question of theirs, and then we haven't really talked much. But
We would like to go.
yeah, it's in the cards, I guess. Like it's a possibility. I'd have to go rejigger my contact there. But we have emailed back and forth now. But they were, frankly, they had a reputation for being very standoffish at best. And so I was basically told, don't bother right now. And then they've changed out curatorial staff, I guess. And I say recently, I couldn't tell you when.
Right.
But they reached out to us just fine, and we've had some conversations through email, and it seems fine. Like, we could probably get out there. But again, we've got a moratorium on travel.
Right. And unfortunately, that's such a drive for us that we need to do a lot of other stuff along the way to make it worth it, and that cannot happen this year.
To be honest with you, like, we kind of talked about what would you do with $1 million kind of thing.
Send out a B team.
We need to, no, not send out. We need a B team to hold it together so we could go out, or vice versa.
Oh, yeah, true.
We have learned time and time again, travel is just not worth it.
Right.
There's certain things like the Mall Dragon that were worth it because you guys really wanted to see that. But the museum.
And then getting to do the 1911 series, going out to California, that was amazing.
Right. Just to fill in that gap for something very, very serious like that.
Right.
However, even there, I think if we had actually not gotten a hold of the actual guns we needed for that series in hand, because we didn't shoot that one.
Right.
But if we hadn't gotten it in hand, we probably could have, from a business perspective, not from a doing everything exactly right perspective, from a business perspective, we would have saved a ton of money, and we would have lost less than 1% of our viewership on that episode. Not that many people were impressed by just seeing that one extra thing. They liked it, but we could have done it from drawings or something else, and it would have been less perfect of an episode, but financially it would have been just fine. And we would have saved
That was more.
thousands
That
of
was a
dollars.
focus on our part to get that right as much as possible.
So there's a lot of that going on with
Which we were
CNR
still
Assault,
very appreciative of that.
and we're trying our best to always do the best we can. But we are reaching the point where there are some financial decisions that have to be made. We essentially got bailed out this past year when we got caught with our foot in a trap. And we are trying desperately not to be in that position again.
Right.
But we are to the wire now on funding and time. And we're getting older, and the show either needs to flex or we're going to have trouble.
Sure. That's why we're stepping up our game this year.
Right. So we're going to do the stuff that we'll talk about more later. And if you're in the podcast, you know a lot of this. But we're going to do the revitalization of the show. We're going to see if we can turn some more merch and some more attention on the channel. We're going to try a couple tricks to get out from under YouTube's basically blacklist on us. And then once we've exhausted all of that, we'll have to then make the decision of, did we grow? Okay, good. We'll bring in help and we'll start expanding on what we do.
Yep.
Or if we didn't grow, we're going to have to cut back, and there's just no way around it. We're going to have to find the sort of minimum viable, because we've been stuck for too many years, and everything we've done sort of left us exactly where we started from, and the price of everything's going up, so it's not making it.
Right. To answer that question, yes, we would like to.
We would like to go, but chances are there's going to be no travel until we solve the major problem of funding right now.
Right. Did May ever add a Swiss 1911 long rifle to her collection of Swiss rifles?
We have that shitty one that we got.
A shitty one.
That's from our argument with Classic long ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Long ago.
it's
So technically, yeah. What was your highest high and lowest low of 2024, personally or professionally? The highest high was probably securing the land, the actual land itself.
Was 2024 in which we got the one mega donation, though?
Oh,
Was it technically that year?
Was it technically that year or was it technically 2023?
I can't
I
remember
think that
when
was
it hit.
technically 2023.
All I know, because it came after the disaster, I thought. No, it came before the disaster, just barely. Anyway, last year was rough because we made the decision to invest in the land as sort of a hedge. We have land that we're shooting on, and we love our friend, but he is one person who could be hit by a bus. So we wanted to make sure that we would always be able to do the show. So we managed to lock in some land to go ahead and be sure we can do the show. In the long run,
Right.
once we have some more financial freedom, we're going to berm that land in a way where the cameras where the shooter faces the sun, essentially.
Which
No
is
one-
not ideal for shooting.
Yeah, no one
but-
builds a range facing the sun. That's insane.
But for camera work, pretty good.
Yeah, it's better. So we can get better footage if we do it that way. We can also give ourselves some more options. We can also put ourselves further from the road so we have better sound control.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot more pristine back there.
It also gives us the options to store stuff on site and things like that will become more efficient as we have the time to do that. Right now, we're just busy choking down the land. Concurrent to the land, or just ahead of it, we had made an agreement with someone to set up studio space. And then after making the investment in the land and actually some other expenditures that we shouldn't have they pulled out. And so we took on a huge amount of cost
That was probably the lowest low.
to drop in.
And they happened pretty close to each other. So we're like, what?
And we can't drop the studio on the land because this is one of those horrible games. If we had $300,000, we could do a lot with the land and then be able to just drop everything there, move out there, whatever we need to do, and work there. That's a possibility. But we don't have that flexibility. So instead, we had to do this horrible half in, half out plan where we drop a building in our own backyard to build up the new studio because I don't know if we say this enough. We're currently in a 10 by 10 room that takes about an hour for us to dismantle part of my computing. Like I have a dual monitor set up and everything for everything. That has to be partially dismantled and wires thrown everywhere to get the camera that you're watching me on
Hello.
into a closet
You're in a
that
closet
it faces
right now.
out of a closet. Like right here at right about this edge. If we adjust that camera 1 degree
Yeah.
over, you'll see the trim of the closet. You guys,
true.
we run that tight of a thing.
It's not that's zoomed out as much as possible currently, so I'd literally
Right.
have to turn the camera a little bit.
So it's literally just a game of
Where's my edge?
trying to roll things. So we had one donor come in that thankfully covered a lot of the damages that we really couldn't afford. And then even so, with the campaign this year, we usually run that as a surplus to get through the next year.
Yep.
We consumed most of it already. So
And
this is a scary year. This is probably the most poor we've been in 7 years.
Yep, and our neighbor came through with getting us hooked up with electricity, AC, and all that biz. He really helped us a lot when getting the studio actually set
Yeah,
up.
he's a
So we
saint.
owe him a big thanks. So that was a
Make
big
keeps
high of
putting
the
meat
year.
in his mouth.
That's a weird way to phrase that, but that's the only thing. He won't take money payment from me, so I got a smoker for Christmas, so I've been smoking meats about every week.
To be fair, now you've ruined his favorite barbecue because you do a better job. So now he's upset.
Well, I haven't done all the barbecue yet, but I am pretty proud of the brisket and the beef ribs I did. Oh my god, the beef ribs are
And
so
the pork
good.
shoulder. And
Poured apple juice on it. The layer it formed.
anyway,
Beautiful.
we're very thankful for our neighbor. We're very
Yes.
thankful for our donors. It actually 2024 was a very serious year for us because we stretched and we went, ooh, this is gonna be tight. And then the moment we stretched, in came the punch to the kidneys, and so we just sort of doubled over and it blew everything apart.
Yeah, there was a brief moment we considered the show what we could actually do if
Yeah,
we had to stop.
We've got liquidation plans if it comes to that because we're that tight. Where it's just like,
But because we were stretching, we were literally trying to push it so that we actually are doubling in on Seeing Arsenal this year so that hopefully the show expands and grows and blah, blah, blah.
I will say we also have a loan system set up with LSB now.
Yes.
So if you guys already like Lock, Stock, and Barrel, you should continue liking them. I feel bad because we thought we'd get we made the agreement with them thinking we'd have the studio up in a certain amount of time and then we had to change plans. So actually we've had an extended, let's call it credit, but we've extended our relationship with them and they haven't gotten their payback yet out of it.
They're being incredibly patient and kind. So
yeah. So if
we appreciate them a lot.
you can feel a lot better about working with those guys too, because they're very on the face about it.
Yeah.
So they've been really helpful. Not that we've received anything, nothing went into our bank account, but just we've got some barred pieces sitting here waiting to be sent back to turn a profit. So essentially we're holding on to what could be a profit for them, which is really nice of them to arrange that for us.
I agree. And we will continue to sing their praises. They've done a solid for us.
But the good news is I get to say that more openly whenever we get... The problem is what we have for them I want to use in the new studio. So.
I know. We've been waiting. Anyway, so that's that. Let's do another couple questions. We'll take a pause. Do you think there's any hope for the modern casual hobbyist Milsurp collector right now? Seems like everything is scooped up and used as investments these days.
No, there's no hope.
Yeah, no, that's really what's happening.
Actually, on the last podcast, I had a rant about this.
Yeah, it was bad.
I
mean, it's a good rant.
Actually, the lowest low was probably the Tulsa Gun Show last week.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because something about it was so disheartening because I went in, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody because I know guys that work for some of these shops, but how do I put this? There's too much profit speculation in the collector's market now, and it's utterly destroyed it. I get into a lot of trouble because people like to blame me or Ian or somebody for raising the prices of Milsurp by talking about Milsurp. But you notice I don't put a price on anything. We're talking about so many things in such fine detail. All I'm doing is building vague awareness of these pieces.
Yep.
Really, I think what's happening that's really affecting price the most is market speculation. And it's huge. There are guys that are putting together guns as essentially investment portfolios for overseas, I'm sure, because you see that in the art world. It's probably just not being said very loud because nobody wants to get caught holding that ball because you'll get boycotted in a heartbeat. But then there's also, we see shield bidding on Gunbroker all the time. I've tracked it out on several sellers where I'm just like, wait a second, this keeps happening. And then I see it relist like 6 months later because by then you can't check the previous listings.
Right.
So you see scams like that. Then you go into the gun show like I went to Tulsa and...
Everything happened dealer day.
Everything happened dealer day. The dealers have a fleet of employees that they send into every corner of the place, buy up everything of any reasonable value, and then they squat on it, and then they got to get their profit, and the profit's got to cover the employee salaries and all this other stuff because this is a business. But the problem is, as an individual, your chances of outrunning them at every corner are pretty low. And then when you do outrun them, the guy on the other side of the table is so terrified of losing $50 on his deal that he could have gotten another $50. They won't move on their prices at all.
Yep.
So everyone's holding out. So I literally went to Tulsa with a couple K in my pocket and came home with exactly the same amount of money, which I'm glad to keep. But I was hoping to invest in some things that would be good for the show on the show. But
right.
I don't know. So...
I feel like that was a consensus across the board with a lot of people that went to the show. They went, man, the prices on this is just nothing's good. I don't know how show was since we didn't go this year, but
yeah. I don't. It's become a speculator's market. It's become a quote unquote investor's market.
Yep.
A lot of this actually came, I think it's downstream of the machine gun investments.
Oh God, yeah, that was a thing where
was the magazine? I can't. Not Business Insider.
There wasn't a time in which we didn't talk to a physician or an accountant or somebody, a dentist. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, I've got one of those up in the attic."
Yeah, I kept running into people with like machine guns got destroyed years ago because I can't remember the name of the journal, but it was a business journal that wrote about machine guns being the highest paying investment in terms of return. And so, of course, they don't think about the fact that it went from a pre-ban item to a post-ban item, and that's what made the money go up.
Right.
But it was. And then also, it was transparency of the legal process. So even after they were banned, they went up heavily because the internet made people more aware and easier to share, oh, you can do this and you can do this legally and you can do it like this. Right now, they're fairly stable. I mean, they'll still go up in the sense that there's a finite number of them unless legislation turns around.
Yep.
But by the time that article came out, most of the juice had been squeezed. And even so, it drove another wave of buying as every person who didn't even care about guns bought machine guns and put them away.
Yep. Like a fine art kind of thing.
And the problem is they're just going to end up in inheritances that aren't going to track the paperwork. They're going to surrender them and they're going to get chopped.
So all those large collections that people were having, they're being parsed out one by one, and they're splitting up into the ends of the earth.
Yeah, and then there's going to be inheritance turnover where they just get destroyed.
Yeah.
Because people get confused and legal machine guns get eaten all the time.
Yep.
So...
It's an unfortunate thing.
Just it's like, I will say, I'm not trying to be a downer, but
You've got like a minute and a half for a downer.
I will be realistic with you guys, my audience. This is not the prime time for a collector unless you're looking for stuff that no one else is looking for. You know,
Right.
The good news is you can still just enjoy the hobby by not having to greedily eat everything. Like I've cut down on my collecting a ton. I know it looks like I'm being weird, but
A lot of this is loans.
loans and stuff that's sort of semi-permanent from hoarders.
Someone was asking me about the other day. I was like, no, most of it's loan. We got a lot of local collectors.
You can have some hoarder friends and they don't want to keep it in their house anymore. Like it's a reference collection of shorts.
One of our friends comes in and out of town and just drops like several here and then takes several back.
But yeah, it's hard. There's a number of pieces that I've been looking for since before the show ever started. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'll ever get to buy them. Like there's some rare countries that I will probably never get to own. Mm-hmm. And I know guys that have them and they're not even that interested in them anymore. They really have moved on to other hobbies, but they won't sell them.
Yeah.
They'll just sit there. And so a lot of people have just because it's an investment now. So even when they're not interested anymore, they sit on the investment. And they're not being bad guys. They're not thinking about the hobby anymore for anybody else either. Mm-hmm. So now it's just rotting on the vine.
Yep. All right, let's take a pause for the cameras.
All right.